In June, Lanzhou City was shrouded in a humid heat wave. Tang Xiao wiped the sweat from his forehead carrying a slightly worn radio he had just picked up from the flea market and hurried into the narrow alley behind the school. He was a sophomore at Lanzhou University studying a niche major with bleak job prospects. To ease his family's burden, he took on simple electronic repair jobs online to support himself, renting a room in an old residential area not far from the school. The flea market was a regular haunt of his. Occasionally he could find usable parts, or like today's radio, perhaps fix it and sell it for a few dozen yuan, enough to cover several days' meals. No sooner had he placed the radio on the workbench cluttered with parts than a knocking sound came at the door. Tang Xiao opened the door to find an elderly man with sun-darkened skin and calloused hands holding a palm-sized metal object that looked like an old-fashioned marine chronometer. "Young man, I hear you're good at fixing these electronic gadgets." The old man handed the object over. "I found this by the seaside, looks pretty in delicate shame to throw away. See if you can fix it. Just a favor, we can talk about payment." Tang Xiao took the chronometer. It felt heavy in his hand, its metal casing cold as if it had been soaked in seawater for years. He nodded and agreed, "I'll give it a try." The old man thanked him repeatedly. Tang Xiao closed the door and examined the seemingly marine chronometer in his palm carefully. The device had a peculiar structure. He turned it over and over for a long time but found neither common interfaces nor any buttons. It was utterly baffling. "How strange." Tang Xiao frowned and shook it forcefully, but still nothing happened. He decided to set it aside on the workbench and focus on fixing the radio first. An electric fan whirred nearby but could not dispel the midsummer heat. Soon sweat beaded on Tang Xiao's forehead. Just then a sharp sting came from his fingertip. He had accidentally cut it on a small blade. A drop of blood rolled off his finger. As he hurriedly reached for tissue, one drop landed precisely on the surface of the marine chronometer. Miraculously, the surface seemed alive, slowly absorbing the blood. In an instant, a brilliant light flashed. Tang Xiao closed his eyes tightly, and it took a while before he opened them slowly. Yet the workbench before him remained unchanged and the object showed no difference. He shook his head. Was he so tired that he was hallucinating? But the stinging sensation in his eyes had been undeniably real. This thing was eerie. The more Tang Xiao looked at it, the more wrong it seemed. Better return it to the old man tomorrow. What if it was some cursed trinket? That was no joke. As night deepened, Tang Xiao stretched and murmured to himself, "Tomorrow is Sunday. I'll go to the flea market again and see if I can find something to fix and sell." His gaze inadvertently swept across the workbench and landed on the marine chronometer. Curiosity finally got the better of him. He picked it up again, playing with it, his fingers stroking the cold surface. "It really is strange." Recalling the flash of light from earlier, he suddenly shook his head, suppressing the thought. "Forget it, I'll just return it to the old man tomorrow." After a quick wash, Tang Xiao collapsed onto the small bed in his rented room and soon fell into a deep sleep. Sometime later, while he was sound asleep, a mechanical female voice suddenly rang in his mind. Vital signs matched. Blood sample analysis complete. Gene sequence meets binding requirements. Deep space exuvi core activating. 1. 49. 98. Activation successful. Race carbon-based human. The highest inheritance of the mechanical god race deep space exuvi has been bound to its sole host. The next day at noon, a knocking sound woke Tang Xiao from his slumber. He rubbed his sleepy eyes and got up, realizing he had slept so long. Opening the door, he found the old man from yesterday standing outside, still wearing a genial smile. The old man got straight to the point. "Young man, is that thing fixed?" "Old sir, I'm awfully sorry, but the structure is too peculiar. I couldn't fix it. You might want to try elsewhere." Tang Xiao scratched his head awkwardly. The old man sighed softly and replied, "All right, I'll ask around then." Tang Xiao turned and walked to the workbench, picking up the object to return it to the old man. Just then a mechanical female voice sounded in his mind. "Host, please keep the puncher activator." Tang Xiao froze, quickly scanning the room but seeing no one. He tapped his head, thinking it was a hallucination from not being fully awake. But when he tried to hand the object to the old man, the mechanical voice echoed in his mind again. "Host, please keep the puncher activator." This time it was crystal clear. Tang Xiao's heart jolted. The voice was undoubtedly coming from within his own mind. The old man noticed his strange expression and asked, "Young man, what's wrong?" Tang Xiao swallowed, steadied himself and said, "Old sir, how about you sell this thing to me? Or I could trade it for another repaired item." A flicker of doubt crossed the old man's eyes. "Oh. Why do you suddenly want it?" "I am just curious about its structure and want to take it apart to study it." Tang Xiao improvised a reason. The old man looked at the object. It looked delicate on the outside, but if it couldn't be fixed, it was ultimately useless. Since the kid wanted it, he might as well sell it for some money. He rolled his eyes and held up one finger. 100. "All right, I'll get it for you. Tang Xiao reached for his money. Hey, not 100, it's 1000. The old man corrected him with a grin, having clearly seen the eagerness in Tang Xiao's eyes. 1000. Tang Xiao exclaimed. How could this broken thing possibly be worth 1000? If you don't want it, give it back, the old man said, reaching out as if to take it. Tang Xiao inwardly cursed the old man for price gouging. He felt a bit defiant and directly handed the object over. 1,000 yuan was a whole month's living expenses. He couldn't let a random voice in his head make him such a fool. Seeing his reaction, the old man suddenly laughed. How about 500? At that moment, the voice in his head sounded again. Host, please keep the Pancher activator. Tang Xiao felt helpless, knowing the old man was testing him. He gritted his teeth and said, at most 300, not a cent more. Fine. Deal. No backing out. The old man agreed instantly, and his quick acceptance made Tang Xiao instantly feel he had overpaid at 300. But the words were out. Reluctantly, he counted out 300 yuan from the box by his bedside and handed it to the old man. Watching the old man pocket the money and walk away with a grin, he could only sigh helplessly. Tang Xiao stared as the old man disappeared around the corner of the corridor, clutching 3 crumpled bills. He slammed the door shut and growled at the empty room. I must be crazy to have shouted 300. That was a whole week's worth of living expenses he had painstakingly saved, all for that piece of junk. Tang Xiao ran his hands through his hair in agitation and shouted into the air, didn't you say to keep this so-called initiator? Keep this worthless thing and eat it for dinner. Only his own echoes swirled around the room. Half a minute passed, then a minute, then 5 minutes, but the metallic voice in his mind never returned. Damn. Tang Xiao slumped into a chair, patting his forehead with his palm. Must have gone crazy from repairing stuff all day, or maybe I've been reading too many novels and got hallucinations, or else. He shuddered. Could it be schizophrenia? He picked up the Panji initiator and weighed it in his hand. A cold sensation seeped from his fingertips. It was heavy, all metal texture, and aside from being more neatly shaped than ordinary scrap iron, it showed no sign of anything special. $300 for this thing. Tang Xiao laughed bitterly and tossed it under the bed. Call it an IQ tax. Just as the iron lump hit the ground, a mechanical female voice suddenly echoed, please activate the Panji initiator, host. Tang Xiao stiffened, springing from his chair. Who's there? He looked around the room. Only he was there. What the hell are you? Why are you talking in my head? Half a minute, 1 minute, 5 minutes passed. The mechanical voice did not reappear. Tang Xiao pressed his forehead. Could that voice have been an illusion too? A helpless thought emerged in his mind, am I really cursed? What is this thing? Just as he was lost in confusion, the mechanical voice rang out again, this system communicates through consciousness. This system is the top-tier core technology of the mechanical race, the Deep Space XUV. It aims to cultivate a successor, restore the glory of the mechanical divine race, and explore the ultimate mysteries of the universe. Mechanical race. Deep Space XUV. Tang Xiao's heart thumped wildly. This dialogue sounded exactly like a sci-fi novel setting. Are you serious? He tentatively asked through thought. The information is authentic. This system is the crystallization of mechanical race civilization, carrying the race's technology and heritage. During an interstellar war, the home planet was destroyed. The system core was damaged in a hyperspace jump, drifting through the cosmos for 10,000 years, eventually falling onto this planet. It was activated when the host offered blood as a sacrifice. Tang Xiao suddenly remembered something. Yesterday, while repairing a radio, he had accidentally cut his finger on a sharp edge and a drop of blood fell onto it. So, my blood activated you. Correct. Yesterday, the host triggered the Deep Space XUV binding procedure. Upon detection, the host's gene sequence meets the successor criteria. The system core has automatically transferred into the host's body and completed integration. Integration. Tang Xiao suddenly became nervous, asking urgently, does it pose any harm to my body? No harm whatsoever. The system core only resides in the sea of consciousness, synchronized with the host's vital signs. It will not erode physiological functions. Hearing the words no harm, Tang Xiao's tense nerves relaxed slightly. He swallowed hard and continued through thought, then what exactly is this Panji initiator you wanted me to activate? The Panji initiator is the initial hub for constructing a mechanical race base. After activation, it will unfold an energy barrier, generate a basic reactor and nano-assembly workshop capable of producing alloy mechanical infantry and resource collection units. As the base level increases, it will gradually unlock the Mecha Forge, starship repair dock, and space jump technology. It is the first stepping stone for the host to transition from planetary civilization to interstellar civilization. Tang Xiao stood frozen, his gaze involuntarily drifting toward the underside of the bed. That lump of iron he had just dismissed as an IQ tax actually held the secret to building mechas and starships. He suddenly crouched down, fumbling under the bed. The moment his fingers touched the cold metal, his heart raced again. Maybe, just maybe, those $300 had really bought him a different future. Tang Xiao gripped the Panji initiator in his palm. The cold metal touch steadied his nerves. He asked through thought, so how do I activate this thing? The host needs to use blood as a guide again, then place it flat on the ground. More bloodletting. Tang Xiao frowned, looking at the finger he had cut yesterday. The shallow scar was still pink. I hope I don't get tetanus before the base even starts. He grumbled, but his body obediently made a small cut on the old wound. A bead of blood appeared. He dripped it onto the Panji initiator, watching as the blood was slowly absorbed. The Panji initiator has detected the host's blood. Initiate binding and activation. Isn't that obvious? Tang Xiao retorted through thought, his fingers still throbbing. I've already bled, hurry up. The Panji initiator has successfully bound to the host. Startup sequence initiated. As the words faded, a beam of azure light suddenly shot up from the center, exploding into countless points of light on the ceiling. Immediately 3 blue beams swept out like scanning lines, illuminating the poster on the wall, the instant noodle cup on the table, and even the dust under the bed with stark clarity. Tang Xiao's eyes were wide open. This was like a scene out of a sci-fi movie. But the next moment, the mechanical female voice doused him with cold water, detected that the host's current territory area is only 20 square meters, insufficient to deploy the base's initial framework. Ha! The smile froze on Tang Xiao's face. He looked down at his shabby rental room and snorted helplessly, so I have to bring my own land, huh? Complaints aside, he clenched his fist and replied through thought, take me to the subspace. He wasn't about to let that blood go to waste. As soon as he spoke, a blinding white light surged like a tidal wave. Tang Xiao instinctively squinted, raising a hand to shield his eyes. When the discomfort faded, he slowly opened his eyes, and the next second his breath caught. Before him there was no trace of the rental room at all. A vast white space. Looking up, there was a steel fortress with sharp edges, its black walls covered with gear-like patterns. Several blue energy beams flowed slowly along those patterns. The entire base exuded technological power like a steel beast. This is the base in subspace. Tang Xiao murmured, his fingers trembling slightly. The mechanical female voice sounded at the right moment. The base is currently level 1. Basic production list unlocked: Tier 1 exoskeleton armor, Tier 1 mechanical infantry, Tier 1 reconnaissance drone B, Tier 1 light flight unit, Tier 1 portable missile system, Tier 1 energy shield, Tier 1 heavy titan vehicle, Tier 1 resource collection vehicle. The translucent projection interface appeared before his eyes with densely packed icons and brief parameters for each piece of equipment, dazzling Tang Xiao. Tang Xiao stared intently at the list of first-tier items and the projection, his heart itching with desire, but the mechanical female voice interrupted his thoughts once again. Star Core activated. Base has entered low-power operation mode. Please determine the form of the base initiation device. Form. Tang Xiao paused, then shifted his gaze from the dazzling equipment icons and asked, what form? The base initiation device can adjust its form according to the host's needs. Portable form: it can be compressed into a badge, bracelet, or other portable styles. Touching it while carrying it allows entry into the base within subspace, but manufacturing is limited. Solid form: condition not met. Tang Xiao rubbed his chin and pondered. Since it's not available, then portable form turned into a watch worn on the wrist. It looks normal and is not easily discovered. Command confirmed. Base initiation device will take the form of a watch. Initial command points for level 1 base: 10000 points. Tang Xiao stared at the number that surfaced in his mind, unable to help but click his tongue in amazement. 10,000 command points. If he used them all to produce mechanical infantry, what an exaggerated army he could raise. Then suddenly noticing the mine crystals and rare gold entropy, he frowned and asked inwardly, what are these things? Does Earth have these things? Database insufficient. Field reconnaissance required for confirmation. Reconnaissance. Tang Xiao immediately thought of the 2 units in the production list. A first-tier reconnaissance drone B and a first-tier reconnaissance electronic cloud. He then issued the order, then produce 1 first-tier reconnaissance drone B and 1 first-tier electronic reconnaissance cloud first. Command received. Base begins production of first-tier reconnaissance drone B and first-tier reconnaissance electronic cloud. Estimated time 12 hours. Consumed 20 command points. Remaining 9980 command points. Alright, notify me when production is complete. Tang Xiao nodded. Then, after taking one last look at the steel fortress, he withdrew. The scene before him blurred and his consciousness returned to the cramped rental room. His gaze instinctively swept to the floor where the base initiation device, which had resembled a nautical instrument, had transformed into a simple watch. He bent down to pick up the watch, grinning foolishly. This is a huge score. Tang Xiao's eyes fell on the pile of treasures he had scavenged from the flea market beside the workbench. An old electric fan with dusty blades, its plastic casing yellowed with age, and a radio missing half its knob. The legacy of the mechanical clan was powerful, but his body was still flesh and blood. He needed to eat, to dress, to have money. Manufacturing high-tech weapons to sell to the country. The thought had barely surfaced before he extinguished it. The risk was too great. Once exposed, what awaited him was certainly not wealth and glory. He understood the principle of an innocent man possessing a prized jade invites calamity. If he attracted unwanted attention, the consequences would be unimaginable. Suddenly an idea flashed through his mind. He asked with his will, "Deep Space Remnant, can you help me fix this electric fan?" The host can use the base initiation device to perform a simple scan and repair low-level mechanical items. Tang Xiao immediately perked up. He quickly raised his hand and aimed the silver watch at the electric fan. In an instant, a soft blue light screen rippled across the watch's surface. A miraculous scene unfolded. The internally charred and blackened circuits automatically healed and the copper wires regained their metallic luster. In less than a minute, he tentatively pressed the switch. With a hum, the fan spun up lightly, the airflow, even the body stable. It was as good as new. Tang Xiao looked at the sight before him, unable to suppress the smile on his face, ecstatic inside. This skill is a lifesaver. Fixing small appliances for money can support me without drawing attention. Perfect. Time flew by and soon it was 1 o'clock in the morning. Tang Xiao deliberately walked to a secluded corner, a place so quiet that only the chirping of insects and his own breathing could be heard. He took a deep breath and commanded, "Deploy first-tier reconnaissance drone B, first-tier reconnaissance electronic cloud." Command received. Deploying immediately. The next second, a faint blue light screen rose from the watch's surface. First there was a soft hum and a flying insect the size of a fingernail emerged. It was entirely silver-black, the frequency of its wing vibration so fast it was nearly invisible, leaving only a faint blur. This was the first-tier reconnaissance drone B. It did not fly away immediately but circled half a turn in Tang Xiao's palm, its compound eyes flickering with cold electronic light. Next, a mass of gray mist descended. Instead of dissipating, it coalesced into a cloud within which countless tiny points of light flowed faintly. This was the first-tier reconnaissance electronic cloud. It was even more eerie than the drone B, seemingly without substance. Floating in midair, it could almost blend into the night, and only up close could one see the electronic light composed of those points of light silently scanning the surroundings. Tang Xiao held his breath, astonished by these two creations of the mechanical clan. The metallic texture of the drone B exuded the cold hardness of future technology, while the ethereal nature of the electronic cloud carried an elusive mystery. The 12 hours of waiting upon seeing them now all transformed into irrepressible excitement. Tang Xiao moved his mind slightly and whispered, "Transfer to the reconnaissance drone B's projection." Transferring to the reconnaissance drone B's perspective for the host. As the electronic voice faded, the scene before him abruptly switched, his perspective dropped sharply, the surrounding objects became immensely large, and a pair of silver-black wings vibrated at high frequency at the edge of his vision, carrying him lightly as he hovered in midair. He tried to move his thoughts and the drone B agilely turned and ascended. The control felt as natural as if it were his own body. Then he switched to the perspective of the electronic reconnaissance cloud. The gray cloud wisp drifted slowly into the night sky. The figure of himself on the ground grew smaller and smaller, the roofs of old residential buildings and the crisscrossing streets gradually spreading out below. The neon outlines of the distant city appeared faintly in the darkness. "Follow the cloud and explore the mine crystals and rare gold entropy on this planet," he silently commanded. Command confirmed. First-tier electronic reconnaissance cloud initiating autonomous scanning mode, prioritizing identification of mine crystal and rare gold entropy signal sources. Tang Xiao mused that upgrading the base was the top priority, and relying on just one cloud was too inefficient. Produce 20 more first-tier electronic reconnaissance clouds. Command received. Level 1 base initiating batch production program. 20 first-tier electronic reconnaissance clouds estimated to be complete in 12 hours. Consumed 200 command points. Remaining 9780 command points. He looked down at the reconnaissance drone B perched on his shoulder, its electronic compound eyes vigilantly scanning the surroundings. "You stay by my side and handle security." First-tier reconnaissance drone B switched to alert mode. Real-time warning for any abnormal targets within a 50-meter radius. At 2 in the morning, after finishing his arrangements, Tang Xiao headed cheerfully back to his rented room, thinking about his classes the next day. As he passed a wall at a street corner, the aroma of grilled skewers drifted over. Just then the electronic voice of Deep Space Remnant suddenly rang out, warning reconnaissance drone Bs detect 2 carbon-based organisms exhibiting hostile behavior characteristics toward the host at 30 meters southeast. Tang Xiao paused mid-step, glancing toward that direction through the shadow of the street lamp. In the darkness near the barbecue stall, 2 scruffy young men were staring at him with unfriendly eyes, one of them subtly touching his waist as if concealing something. His heart tightened, but he kept walking briskly without stopping. The 2 youths followed him all the way. The streetlight deep in the alley was broken. Under the dim yellow glow, a youth with bleached hair suddenly sprang out from the shadows at the base of the wall, blocking Tang Xiao's path with an outstretched arm. "Hey bro, walking so fast, where's the rush?" He swayed his head lazily, a malicious grin curling at the corner of his mouth. Tang Xiao's heart skipped a beat and he instinctively stepped back 2 paces. But before he could steady himself, 2 snickers came from behind. Unbeknownst to him, 2 other youths with bleached hair had already cut off his retreat, trapping him in the narrow alley from both ends. "Looks like there's no escape." Tang Xiao clenched his fists, his heart sinking. With his physique used to crouching at a workbench all day, he couldn't even handle 1 street thug, let alone 2. In desperation, he hurriedly called out with his mind deep, "Space remnant. What do I do? Detecting host under threat. Recommend initiating first-level reconnaissance drone B self-destruct protocol capable of delivering devastating damage to the target carbon-based organisms." The cold electronic voice echoed in his mind. "Kill them." Tang Xiao was startled. "They're probably just trying to rob me, no need to go that far." "Is there another way?" First-level nano-exoskeleton attachment module can be activated. This module instantly attaches to the host's limbs and spine, enhancing muscle response and strength, capable of executing corresponding commands. "Use that. Hurry!" Tang Xiao roared in his mind, his eyes fixed on the approaching youth. Command received. First-level nano-exoskeleton attachment module production initiated. Estimated completion time 12 hours. Damn it! Can't you speed it up? Tang Xiao stared at the bleached-haired youth now right in front of him. Activating emergency acceleration protocol requires an additional 50 command points. Proceed. Accelerate. Do it now. Command confirmed. Deducting 10 base production command points, 50 for acceleration, remaining command points 9,720. The moment the words faded, several streams of silver liquid suddenly surged from the bottom of the watch on his wrist, flowing like mercury into his arms, calves and back. A sharp tingling sensation passed, and then a scorching force exploded along his spine. His once heavy limbs became light, as if a powerful strength was hidden within his muscles. "Bro, be smart and hand over some cash," the bleached-haired youth behind him said, eyeing the watch on his wrist. "That watch of yours looks pretty unique, how about letting us brothers have a look?" Tang Xiao felt the surging power within him, a smirk curling at his lips as he replied, "Big bro, I really don't have any money." "Cut the crap." The green-haired youth beside him lost patience, swinging his fist at Tang Xiao's face. "Let's beat him up first." Tang Xiao felt the opponent's fist moving in slow motion before his eyes, and he even allowed himself a contemptuous smile. The next second, a dull thud echoed as the fist landed squarely on his face. "Ow. That hurts." Tang Xiao crouched down, holding his nose, tears nearly streaming from the pain. The 3 youths stared in disbelief. The bleached-haired one scratched his head. "Is this kid stupid? He doesn't dodge and he's just standing there grinning." Tang Xiao roared inwardly, "What the hell is this broken system doing? Why did I still get hit?" Detected that the host has not activated the module. First-level nano-exoskeleton attachment module is ready. Activate. Mode selection, automated defense, manual control. Activate automated mode. Do it now. Tang Xiao was almost laughing in frustration. Had he just taken that punch for nothing? This deep space remnant was probably a scam. He glared at the green-haired youth who was swinging again, his nose still throbbing. A faint hum emanated from his spine like an electric current surging through his nerve endings. As the green-haired youth's fist came within sight, Tang Xiao's body recoiled like a spring, his left arm slicing diagonally along the trajectory of the punch, precisely locking onto the opponent's wrist. The movement was so fast it even surprised himself. He had never fought before, let alone engaged in combat. "Ha!" The green-haired youth froze, trying to pull his hand free, but his wrist felt clamped in a steel vice, pain making him grimace. "You dare fight back?" The bleached-haired youth behind him grabbed a half-brick from the wall and hurled it. Catching the movement from the corner of his eye, the exoskeleton's built-in warning system sent a jolt through his spine. His body instinctively rolled to the right as the brick grazed his shoulder, smashing against the wall and shattering into pieces. The moment he landed, his right leg swept out, kicking the bleached-haired youth squarely in the knee. A crisp crack sounded and the youth screamed, collapsing to the ground. "What's going on? Is this guy a martial artist?" The green-haired youth paled in fear. Tang Xiao flexed his wrist, feeling the power from the exoskeleton, a cold smirk curling at his lips, scared now. He took a step forward and the 2 youths scrambled to their feet, fleeing toward the alley's entrance. Watching their retreating figures, Tang Xiao touched his nose, wincing in pain. This system didn't completely screw me over after all. Back in his rented room near the school, Tang Xiao's mind was preoccupied with one thought: he needed to find a secluded spot quickly and establish his own territory. "If only I could have some help to share the load." He sighed silently, staring at the ceiling. Then a flash of inspiration struck and he commanded Deep Space Remnant immediately produce 10 first-level reconnaissance clouds. Once completed, have them search for an empty uninhabited island. Also have the previous reconnaissance clouds join the search for an island. Oh, and produce 10 more mechanical infantry, 10 mechanical dogs and 7 reconnaissance drone bees. Command received. Base construction initiated. This consumption 370 command points, remaining command points 9,350. The cold mechanical prompt echoed in his mind and Tang Xiao's brow furrowed slightly. In just one day 650 command points had been spent, a consumption rate far faster than he had anticipated. Looks like he'll have to be more frugal from now on, he murmured to himself. His tense nerves finally relaxed once the plan was set. Tang Xiao imagined the reconnaissance clouds gliding over the sea, envisioned the mechanical troops standing ready, and a smile involuntarily tugged at his lips as drowsiness crept in. Carrying this anticipation for the future, he gradually drifted into sleep. In the early morning of June, the Monday sunlight slanted into the rented room, casting dappled shadows across Tang Xiao's face. A smile lingered on his lips as he was immersed in a dream. In his dream, the Blue Star continent, what a magnificent sight it would be if hundreds of nations could be unified. He couldn't help but laugh in his dream, but was abruptly awakened by a crisp bird chirping outside the window. The electronic watch on his wrist flashed glaring numbers and Tang Xiao muttered a curse. Damn it. I'm going to be late. He hastily threw on his clothes, didn't even touch his toothbrush, grabbed his bag and dashed toward school. By the time he reached the lecture hall entrance, panting, the teacher's voice was already calling the roll, and it happened to land on Tang Xiao. The teacher glanced at him, a hint of helplessness in their tone. Your skill at cutting it close is truly masterful. Suppressed laughter came from the back rows. Zhang Yuanshu said in a voice loud enough for others to hear, probably crouched somewhere fixing those junkyard pieces of his, staying up till midnight, right? A burst of laughter erupted around him. Tang Xiao's face flushed, he forced a dry chuckle in response. The teacher didn't press further. He quickly slipped into his seat. No sooner had he sat down than Lu Qing, sitting beside him, wrinkled her nose and said, her voice soft but audible to those nearby, Tang Xiao, it's so hot, couldn't you at least take a shower? The smell is too strong. Those words pricked like a fine needle and Tang Xiao's ears instantly turned crimson. He said nothing, silently pulling out his textbook. He knew well that in this school most were local special enrollees from wealthy or influential families. Someone like him who had squeezed in through sheer academic merit was already an outsider. The moment his fingertips touched the textbook cover, a system prompt suddenly echoed in his mind. Hosts daily activities temper the physical body, reward 10 command points. Current balance 9360. Tang Xiao's heart leaped, so exercising could earn command points. This was an unexpected bonus. But only 10 points was far too little. As soon as the noon bell rang, Tang Xiao grabbed his bag and rushed back to the rented room. He had no classes in the afternoon, which meant rare free time for him. Back in his small room, he first took a thorough shower, changed out of his sweat-stained old t-shirt into a clean short-sleeved one, and then headed straight for the flea market. Before leaving, he instructed Deep Space Exuvii in his mind have the newly produced scout bees and mechanical infantry stand by. Send all scout clouds to the waters near Lanzhou City to find an uninhabited island. He was well aware that Deep Space Exuvii had told him before that a level 1 base was still restricted in subspace and manufacturing large machinery would still face limitations. So he needed to find a safe place quickly. A month passed in the blink of an eye. During this month, Tang Xiao exercised rigorously every day without fail, and his command points slowly increased. At the same time, thanks to the repair capabilities of the Pangea activator, he gradually gained a reputation in the repair circle. Not long ago, he repaired a broken luxury watch for a wealthy businessman who generously gave him 30,000. Later, he restored an heirloom antique clock for an elderly man, earning another 10,000. To avoid drawing attention, he always claimed that a job he could finish in one night would take 4 or 5 days or even a week. Now he no longer relied on money from home. His living expenses at school were more than sufficient, and he even sent money to his parents from time to time. On Friday evening, in the rented room, Tang Xiao sat at his workbench using the Pangea activator to repair a gilded pocket watch. Under the lamplight, his movements were practiced almost mechanical. Now he only took on high-paying, delicate jobs. Just then a cold system prompt suddenly echoed in his mind. Report to host, scout clouds have discovered an uninhabited island in the sea area 1000 kilometers from Lanzhou City, meeting the conditions for establishing a level 1 base. Tang Xiao paused abruptly, a sharp glint flashing in his eyes. Finally found it. He then said to Deep Space Exuvii, Deep Space Exuvii, release the Iron Spine Man combat armor. As soon as Tang Xiao finished speaking, a response came in his mind. Command received. Releasing Iron Spine Man combat armor. The next second, a stream of dark metallic light flowed out from the Pangea activator. The shoulder armor was sharply triangular, a deep blue energy core embedded in the chest joints gleaming with cold metallic luster. Every line exuded a sense of metallic substance, like a steel war god stepping out of a sci-fi film, encasing Tang Xiao securely within. Over the past month, he had already learned to communicate smoothly with Deep Space Exuvii, and his understanding of the mechanoid race had deepened. At that moment, as the armor conformed to his body, Tang Xiao felt a surging power well up. Taking advantage of the night, he pushed open the window. The thrusters at his feet suddenly ignited with pale blue flames, and he shot into the night sky, flying swiftly toward the target island. In the sky, a black streak of light skimmed over the sea surface. The armor I spent 500 command points to build, it didn't disappoint. Tang Xiao savored the exhilarating speed, a feeling of elation filling his heart. Moments later, he arrived above the island. 5 first-tier scout clouds hovered in midair, emitting a faint hum as they conducted a full-spectrum scan of the island's terrain and vegetation. The island has been confirmed to have no traces of intelligent life activity. Tang Xiao stood in midair, his gaze sweeping across the island below. Scout bees probe a 60-kilometer radius for any signs of human activity. Scout clouds expand the range to 300 kilometers and check for any human traces now. At his command, dozens of bee-sized scout units and the scout clouds immediately dispersed, vanishing into the night. Tang Xiao slowly descended to the island's ground and ordered in a deep voice, "Release all first-tier mechanical infantry and mechanical dogs." A blue light flashed and orderly rows of units materialized. The mechanical infantry, clad in silver-gray armor and wielding energy rifles, swept the surroundings with a red dot from their heads. The mechanical dogs had thick limbs and gleaming claws like a steel legion, poised for action, silently awaiting commands. Soon a report came to his mind. Scout bees detected no signs of human activity in the vicinity. Scout clouds detected no human traces within 300 kilometers. A smile curled at the corner of Tang Xiao's mouth. He raised his wrist, aiming the watch, the disguised form of the Pangea activator, at the open space ahead. Excellent. Then Mechanoid Level 1 base deploy. Mechanoid Level 1 base solidification projection program initiated. With the cold prompt, a massive blue light screen burst forth from the activator, rising like a pillar connecting heaven and earth. The next second, the light screen warped and a colossal structure slowly descended, a pitch-black base, main body covering tens of thousands of square meters, its walls covered in intricate metal patterns through which deep blue energy bands flowed. The rumble of its landing made the ground tremble slightly. On an island 1,000 kilometers away from Lanzhou City, the trees that once covered it were forcibly snapped and the roosting birds scattered in alarm, fleeing into the night sky. Tang Xiao gazed at this steel fortress, a symbol of the future, his eyes blazing with fervent light as he commanded in a deep voice, "Activate the base defenses." Listening to the cascade of activation prompts, Tang Xiao's heart tightened. First-level base energy barrier activated. Mist system engaged, a permanent fog belt will be generated around the island. Phantom device activated, capable of disrupting satellite detection and presenting a false terrain. From today onward, this would be his first stronghold on the Blue Star continent. He looked up at the profound night sky, his battle armor's visor slowly opening as a confident smile curled at the corner of his mouth. First-level base defense fully operational. Tang Xiao turned and ordered the steel battalion behind him, 150 mechanical infantry and 50 mechanical hounds. From now on, you are responsible for patrolling and guarding the island's perimeter. The metallic soldiers and mechanical hounds bowed their heads in unison, acknowledging the command, then scattered like a tide, swiftly merging into the island's vegetation. He strode into the base, his gaze sweeping over the mirror-smooth metal floor and the flowing energy patterns on the walls. He couldn't help but marvel inwardly that this solidified base was what a true entity felt like, solid and reassuring. The Pangea activation device on his wrist remained securely fastened, its screen flickering with data streams showing it was seamlessly connected to the base's core. From now on, with a single command, he could directly spacejump here, no longer needing to rely on the iron spine battle armor to fly as he had on his arrival. Tang Xiao exclaimed in astonishment, the mechanoid technology truly leaves the Blue Star continent in the dust. Steadying himself, he ordered the Deep Space Remnant deploy all reconnaissance clouds, focusing the search on crystals and rare gold entropy. Additionally, manufacture a batch of first-level terrain survey bugs and have them join the search. Order received. Manufacturing first-level terrain survey bugs. Remaining command points 6,700. As the command faded, a thought struck him and he pressed further. Didn't you mention that once the base was solidified I'd unlock the manufacturing authorization for class intelligent battle armor? Can I build it now? If the host wishes to unlock the class intelligent battle armor, 1,000 command points will be consumed. Confirm unlock. 1,000 points. Tang Xiao's brow shot up, his tone full of surprise. His iron spine battle armor had cost only 500 command points. He hadn't expected unlocking a class armor to double the price. But on second thought, with this intelligent armor, many tasks could be delegated in the future, sparing him from handling everything personally. Gritting his teeth, he nodded. Unlock. Unlocking class intelligent battle armor authorization. Host, please set basic parameters: form, height, primary color designation, and type. A translucent projection panel immediately materialized before him, data streams scrolling rapidly. Tang Xiao stared at the panel, pondering for a moment. He still found the humanoid form most familiar, then said, form humanoid. Height 2 meters. Primary color crimson red. Designation Inferno. Type reconnaissance. Tang Xiao understood that even a reconnaissance-type armor would be several times stronger than ordinary mechs. The priority now was to find the items needed for upgrades. Parameters confirmed. Class Intelligent Reconnaissance Armor Inferno entering manufacturing process. Estimated completion in 24 hours. Remaining command points 5,700. Tang Xiao acknowledged with a sound, feeling somewhat surprised. The Iron Spine battle armor had taken only 12 hours to build, this time it had doubled. It seemed the Inferno armor was indeed extraordinary and the 1,000 command points might not have been wasted. He turned and walked out of the base, separating himself from the pitch-black Iron Spine battle armor. Stretching his limbs, he began jogging against the island's sea breeze. 1,000 command points. He mused as he ran, sweat trickling down his cheeks. I wonder how long you'll have to train to earn them back. The gravel underfoot crunched beneath his steps, yet he ran with increasing vigor. After all, every step was paving the way for a more powerful future. After running for over an hour, he stopped to stretch. Suddenly a prompt sounded in his mind: host has completed basic physical training. Reward 12 command points. Current remaining 5,712 command points. 2 more points than yesterday. Tang Xiao clenched his fist, feeling the growing power within his body. This month of training hadn't been in vain. Not only were the command points increasing, but his stamina had vastly improved. At that moment, a thin layer of mist spread across the distant sea horizon, the base's mist system at work. From the outside, this island probably looked like nothing more than an ordinary uninhabited reef. 24 hours passed in the blink of an eye. Tang Xiao had been waiting early at the manufacturing bay's door, his gaze fixed intently on the sealed metal door, barely able to contain his anticipation. With a soft hiss, the hatch slid open slowly. White mist billowed out like gossamer, carrying a faint, cool, metallic and energetic scent. From within the mist, a crimson figure emerged slowly. A 2-meter-tall humanoid battle armor, its shoulder plates shaped into sharp arcs, the energy core on its chest glowed with a red light like a beating heart, its limb joints were covered in heavy armor, every line exuding an aesthetic of power and speed. The crimson coating seemed forged in the fires of purgatory. This was Inferno. When Inferno's optical sensors detected Tang Xiao, who stood a head shorter, its right knee bent sharply and its metal foot slammed heavily onto the ground with a resounding clang, dropping to one knee. A deep magnetic mechanical voice rang out, carrying a note of solemnity: Great Inheritor of the Mechanoids, Lord Tang Xiao. Class Intelligent Battle Armor Inferno offers you its highest respects. Tang Xiao was amused by the display and waved a hand. There's no need for such exaggeration. Get up and don't call me Inheritor, it sounds odd. Inferno rose slowly, its metal joints emitting a faint click, still respectfully bowing its head. As you command. Great, stop. Tang Xiao quickly interrupted. After a moment's thought, he couldn't help but laugh. Keep it simple. Just call me my lord. As you command, my lord. Inferno's mechanical voice immediately adjusted the title, showing no trace of emotional fluctuation but exuding absolute obedience. Tang Xiao nodded with satisfaction, then turned serious, his tone shifting. Inferno, I need your help. Search for materials to upgrade the base, or crystals and gold. Entropy, the more the better. Understood, my lord. Inferno's optical core flickered once. Gazing at the crimson armor brimming with power before him, Tang Xiao seemed to see the hope for the base's upgrade, and the smile at the corner of his mouth deepened. Tang Xiao looked at the Yen before him, his tone carrying a hint of solemnity. Currently there are 5,700 command points left. I will grant you the usage rights to 3,000 points to fully search for mining crystals and rare golden entropy. You can also mobilize the mechas in the base at will. The optical core of Yen flickered for a moment before slowly nodding. I will obey the orders of my lord. You'll have a tough time ahead. Tang Xiao jumped up and patted Yen's cold shoulder armor, smiling foolishly before turning to leave the base. The Iron Spine battle armor immediately enveloped Tang Xiao's entire body. Taking advantage of the cover of the mist, he soared into the sky, feeling light and carefree in the returning winds. Now that he had Yen to share the burden, he could finally relax temporarily and focus on accumulating command points. In the blink of an eye, it was Monday, and Tang Xiao found himself lost in thought as he gazed out the window in class. After this period of training, he not only stood taller but also lost the tightness of his brows, gaining a more composed demeanor. His skin even glowed with health, making him a stark contrast to the boy who was often mocked before. This change did not escape Zhang Yuan's eyes. Sitting in the back row, he stared at Tang Xiao's back, puzzled. How is this poor kid like a different person? The more he thought about it, the more unsettling it felt, so he simply stood up and walked over. Stopping by Tang Xiao's desk, he deliberately tapped the table with his textbook. Hey Tang Xiao, where have you been getting rich lately? You actually care enough to tidy yourself up? The sarcasm in his tone was impossible to hide. Tang Xiao slowly turned his head, his calm gaze landing on Zhang Yuan's face without a word. Zhang Yuanshu was momentarily taken aback by his gaze. The old Tang Xiao would either dodge or awkwardly smile. Where did this calm demeanor come from? After a pause, feeling embarrassed, he spoke more aggressively. Are you deaf? Did you think you're impressive now that you've earned a bit from fixing junk? Two lackeys following him laughed along. Brother Chu, I heard he's now a repair master. Why would he care about us? Tang Xiao suppressed his annoyance. Brother Chu, is there something you need? Can't I just chat with you if there's nothing? Zhang Yuanshu leaned in closer, intentionally bumping Tang Xiao's desk. I heard you've been making some good money lately. How about treating us to a meal? The pen on the corner of the desk was knocked to the ground as Tang Xiao bent down to pick it up, but Zhang Yuanshu raised his foot to step on the pen. Just then Tang Xiao's hand shot up, firmly grabbing Zhang Yuanka's ankle. His grip was not strong, yet it felt like a vice, leaving Zhang Yuanshu unable to move. Zhang Yuanshu, I advise you not to go too far. Zhang Yuanshu took a half step back, hissing in pain, his face flushed. How dare you touch me? One of his lackeys quickly kicked at Tang Xiao. Tang Xiao slightly leaned to the side, dodging the incoming foot while twisting Zhang Yuanka's ankle. With a yelp, Zhang Yuanshu lost his balance and fell hard to the ground, grimacing in pain. Tang Xiao stood up. He merely cast a cold glance at them. His eyes held no anger but carried an oppressive aura that unnerved the three, and they found themselves inexplicably hesitant to approach. The commotion attracted the attention of the entire class. Even the teacher paused in their lecture. Tang Xiao bent down to pick up the fallen pen, dusting it off before opening his textbook as if nothing had happened. Zhang Yuanshu was helped up by his lackeys, both embarrassed and furious, but when he met Tang Xiao's calm gaze he inexplicably shivered, not daring to utter another word. As the class bell rang, Tang Xiao was tidying up his books when a clear female voice called out from beside him. Tang Xiao, wait a moment. He looked up to see a pair of crescent moon-shaped eyes. The girl wore a simple white dress, her long hair loosely tied behind her head, revealing her slender neck. She was one of the beauties discussed by the boys at school. Su Shiwei. Is there something? Tang Xiao was somewhat surprised. Su Shiwei nervously twisted the strap of her backpack, her cheeks slightly flushed. Thank you for picking up my notes that fell on the floor earlier. She pointed to the notebook at the corner of her desk. Also, Zhang Yuanshu and his friends often bully others. Don't take it to heart. Tang Xiao then recalled that during the earlier conflict a pink notebook had indeed fallen by his feet, which he had picked up and placed on the adjacent desk, not realizing it was hers. Tang Xiao simply replied, it was a small favor. I know you've been helping people fix things lately. Su Shiwei suddenly looked up, her eyes sparkling. My grandfather has an old radio that hasn't worked in years. Can you take a look at it? I can pay you. Tang Xiao looked at her earnest expression and nodded in response. Sure, bring it over this weekend. Really? Su Ziwei's eyes lit up even more, revealing a shallow dimple. Thank you so much. Let's exchange contact information and I'll send you a photo of the radio first. Tang Xiao took out his phone and saw the friend request pop up on the screen, with the note being Su Shiwei. He accepted it, his finger lingering on the screen for a moment, realizing that she was the first female classmate to actively add him in this school. On Sunday afternoon, just as Tang Xiao finished organizing his workbench in his rental room, a knock sounded at the door. Opening it, he found Su Shiwei standing at the door holding an old radio. Her white canvas shoes were a bit dusty, clearly indicating she had walked quite a distance. Sorry, it's a bit out of the way. Tang Xiao stepped aside to let her in. As Su Shiwei entered the room, her eyes widened slightly. She had expected this kind of old rental place to be messy, but the room was spotlessly clean. The floor gleamed, the old desk in the corner was tidily arranged, and even the few pots of wild grass on the windowsill had been trimmed, with a faint scent of metal cleaner in the air. I didn't expect you to be so tidy. She couldn't help but say, her gaze sweeping across the corner of the living room just in time to see a silver mechanical device automatically wiping the table. It had flexible mechanical arms and omnidirectional wheels moving with precision and grace. What is this? Su Shiwei pointed at the mechanical device, her eyes full of curiosity. Oh, this is the dust cleaning assistant, a little gadget I put together to help with cleaning. Tang Xiao casually explained. This was actually a basic housework robot produced en masse by the base, and he had specially tuned one to assist with cleaning. You can even do this. Su Shiwei was even more surprised, walking to the workbench with the radio. Then this radio should be a piece of cake for you. She placed the radio on the table. It had a retro brown wooden casing with some worn corners clearly showing its age. Tang Xiao picked up the radio and weighed it in his hands. When he looked up, he met Su Ziwei's expectant gaze and smiled. Don't worry, it shouldn't be hard to fix. Su Shiwei watched Tang Xiao as he focused on inspecting the radio, suddenly feeling that this boy who was often mocked seemed to hide many unknown skills. The sunlight streamed through the window, casting warm rays upon the two in the rented room. Tang Xiao's fingertips had just grazed the knob of the radio when he caught a glimpse of Su Shiwei standing nearby, her curious gaze fixed between him and the workbench. He silently cursed the trouble it wouldn't do to activate the foundation activation device in front of her. Once it was activated, the blue light would flash and the repair process would proceed with a speed that defied mortal means, leaving no room for explanation. Tang Xiao set down the radio, turned to her with a smile and spoke in a casual tone. This radio is a bit old, the components inside may have oxidized quite a bit, so it needs to be carefully disassembled for inspection. How about this? You go back first and come back tomorrow at this time to pick it up. Su Shiwai was momentarily taken aback, then quickly understood that she had indeed been staring for too long, her cheeks flushing slightly.
Oh. I'm sorry for disturbing you. Then I'll come back tomorrow. Thank you for your trouble.
She picked up her canvas bag, glanced at the diligent dust-cleaning robot still scrubbing the floor in the corner, couldn't help but steal another glance at Tang Xiao, and then gently closed the door behind her as she left. As the door closed, Tang Xiao let out a sigh of relief and promptly removed the foundation activation device from his wrist. A soft blue glow illuminated his palm as he pointed the device at the radio and murmured, "Deep space remnants, scan and repair." Command received. Analyzing the structure of the vintage radio.
Estimated repair time 30 seconds. The next afternoon, Su Shiwai knocked on the door right on time.
Upon seeing the radio, which now looked brand new, her eyes lit up.
Oh my gosh, is this my radio?
The wooden casing gleamed with a warm luster and the knob turned smoothly, completely unlike an antique that had been around for decades. She shoved an envelope into Tang Xiao's hand.
Thank you so much.
This radio means a lot to my grandfather. You absolutely must accept this reward.
Tang Xiao pushed the envelope back, smiling as he shook his head. No need, it was just a simple task. But how can that be? Su Shiwai exclaimed, her eyes sparkling as if an idea had struck her. How about I take you out for dinner? To a restaurant nearby. You mustn't refuse or I'll feel bad. Just as Tang Xiao was about to decline, he met Su Zaiwei's bright, sincere gaze.
He hesitated for a moment, realizing he hadn't had a proper meal in quite some time.
Well,
he was somewhat reluctant.
It's settled then.
Without waiting for him to finish, Su Shiwai officially placed the radio into her bag and said, "I know a restaurant near the east gate of the school that has amazing food, especially their sweet and sour ribs.
If you go late, you might not get any."
As she spoke, she grabbed Tang Xiao's arm and pulled him outside, her movements natural and enthusiastic.
Come on, it won't take too much of your time.
As Tang Xiao was pulled along for a couple of steps, he watched the girl's lively figure and his initial thoughts of refusal began to dissipate. He smiled helplessly, deciding to go along with her enthusiasm.
All right, but let's agree, don't order anything too expensive.
Don't worry. Su Shiwai turned back with a smile, sunlight illuminating her delicate face, making her all the more captivating.
I promise you'll eat well and drink well. The two walked side by side out of the rented room, the afternoon breeze warm yet refreshing, lifting their spirits inexplicably.
Tang Xiao suddenly felt that going out for a meal like this once in a while wasn't such a bad thing. Meanwhile, on the other side of Blue Star, night had descended over a military base in the Orlan Federation. Deep within the base, a container marked special minerals sat quietly, containing the very target of Yin Yes mission, golden entropy. Above the clouds, a crimson battle armor hovered like a silent war god, its optical sensors locking onto the base's defense hub.
Surrounding it, several first-tier reconnaissance drones spread silently, resembling phantoms in the night, disseminating electronic fog.
In a concealed spot on the ground, a ring magnetic interferer was releasing circular energy waves, causing the base's radar screen to become a flurry of static.
Mechanical infantry and robotic dogs stood in neat formations, ready for action. Move out. Yen Yes magnetic mechanical voice echoed through the communication channel.
As soon as the command was given, the mini-missile nest behind it suddenly lit up with red light and several armor-piercing projectiles streaked downward, leaving fiery trails.
Boom!
The defensive tower in the northwest corner of the base was instantly engulfed in flames, and the piercing alarm sounded like a death knell tearing through the night sky.
The beams from the searchlight swept frantically through the darkness, but they couldn't even catch a glimpse of the enemy's shadow. What's happening?
The duty officer slammed his hand against the control panel, his face ashen.
Report.
The radar is heavily jammed. We cannot locate the incoming targets.
The operator's voice trembled. Request immediate air support.
The officer shouted, and just as his words fell, a series of explosions erupted outside the warehouse, the mechanical infantry's energy rifles demolishing the sentry towers.
Colonel.
The satellite signals have also been blocked. We can't contact the outside world. In the chaos, the base guards finally caught a glimpse of the invaders under the brief illumination of the searchlight. Silver-gray mechanical infantry wielding flickering blue rifles and robotic dogs with iron claws that gleamed coldly tore through the barbed wire, moving so swiftly that they left only streaks of silver light in their wake.
What? What are those things?
One guard stuttered, his hands trembling as he aimed his gun. Before they could take aim, the mechanical dog lunged forward, its sharp claws easily tearing through the bulletproof vests.
Quick! Close the door. Shut the blast door.
The captain shouted, watching as the heavy alloy door slowly descended. Just as everyone thought they could catch their breath, two beams of crimson energy shot in suddenly.
Boom!
The iron door exploded as if made of paper, and a scorching wave of air-carrying debris rushed toward them. Amidst the smoke and dust, the crimson battle armor stepped forward, its energy shield deflecting the guards' panicked gunfire.
Is that a mech?
Someone screamed in shock. Yu paid no heed to the guards, its feet igniting with flames as it shot into the depths of the warehouse, arriving at the iron door marked mineral storage area, where two beams of energy shot forth, blasting open the lock. It approached a box labeled special minerals, metallic fingers gliding over the cold exterior, the optical core flickering twice.
Target confirmed, rare golden entropy preparing for transfer.
It then bent down to lift the box, turning to leave.
The bullets from the guards struck its back, only sparking a flurry of fire.
Meanwhile, above the base, two first-tier stealth fighters had been lying in wait for some time. Metal tracks with magnetic suction devices extended from the underside of the aircraft as the mechanical infantry and robotic dogs quickly attached themselves, their energy rifles still firing downward to suppress the pursuing fire.
Holding golden entropy, Yu leaped into the aircraft.
The crimson battle armor and silver-gray legion disappeared into the night sky of the military base under the cover of reconnaissance clouds as the aircraft's cloaking shield activated completely. Only the devastated battlefield remained, along with the shocked faces of the guards. In the bustling restaurant near the school, amidst a cacophony of voices, Tang Xiao had just picked up a piece of sweet and sour spare ribs when he heard a rowdy burst of laughter and jeers from the neighboring table. Zhang Yuanshu, glass in hand, stared intently at Su Shiwei as if she were some rare spectacle. "Su the beauty, how did you end up hanging out with someone like Tang Xiao? Can he even afford to treat you to this place?" A boy beside him chimed in. "Brother Chu, maybe the beauty is just being kind-hearted, taking pity on him."
Tang Xiao thought to himself that he clearly hadn't taught them a lesson yet.
Su Ziwei's face flushed with anger, and she was about to stand up to argue. "Host, the Inferno has retrieved two rare gold entropy, requiring immediate activation of the base's core furnace."
Tang Xiao's expression brightened at this. In just over a week, the Inferno had obtained two rare gold entropy.
He hurriedly said to Su Shiwei, "I have something urgent to attend to, I must leave now." Before Su Shiwei could react, Tang Xiao abruptly stood up and strode out of the restaurant. Zhang Yuanshu and his group were momentarily stunned, then burst into even louder laughter. "Oh, getting cold feet already." Zhang Yuanshu slapped the table. "I hadn't even said anything yet and he's running off so fast.
Looks like he was just putting on a brave face back in the classroom."
"Definitely. Look at how pathetic he is, probably finding a place to hide." The boy beside him laughed uncontrollably. Su Shiwei was both anxious and angry. Tang Xiao was not. But before she could finish, Tang Xiao had already dashed out of the eatery. Back inside, Zhang Yuanshu continued his scornful tirade, spittle flying. "See, I told you, a guy like him is only fit to fix junk in a corner.
Eating with a beauty like Su. Is he even worthy?"
Su Shiwei tightened her grip on her chopsticks, staring at the direction where Tang Xiao had vanished, a strange feeling stirring within her. Was he truly afraid, or did he have something genuinely important to do? Before long, Tang Xiao returned to his rented room, tapped the Pancher activation device and focused his mind. Coordinates locked. Spatial jump. A pale blue spatial ripple unfurled beneath his feet and his figure vanished in an instant. Before the dizziness of the jump had fully subsided, Tang Xiao stood in the base's core chamber. His gaze was immediately drawn to the object on the central energy platform, two modestly sized rare gold entropy suspended within an energy field, their entire surfaces flowing with a deep golden luster, radiating a majestic energy far surpassing that of ordinary ores.
"So this is rare gold entropy." Tang Xiao stared unblinkingly. "I never thought this planet actually had."
Tang Xiao stepped forward, his fingertips almost touching the field's barrier, the golden radiance reflected in his eyes as he struggled to suppress a smile from curling at the corners of his mouth. With these two rare gold entropy, the base was one step closer to upgrading to level 2. He took a deep breath, quelling the surging joy, and commanded in a deep voice, "Activate the furnace, immediately begin merging with the star core." As the two rare gold entropy melted, the base's upgrade progress bar on the optical screen suddenly jumped forward a notch. Distance to level 2 base upgrade requires Mine Crystal X10 rare gold entropy X3. The Inferno's optical core flickered. Lord, 500 command points have been consumed to construct two first-generation stealth fighters and a ring magnetic interceptor with 2,500 points remaining. Tang Xiao looked at the screen, a total command points remaining 5230, and his smile deepened. The Inferno's efficiency and restraint had saved him much trouble. In that case, he mused, let's go ahead and build two more class intelligent mechs. Tang Xiao pulled up the design templates, an offensive mech focusing on burst power and close quarters suppression, let's call it Mountain Breaker. Then a command type mech specializing in battlefield analysis and remote control, name it Stargazer.
Parameters confirmed. Class intelligent offensive mech Mountain Breaker, entering manufacturing process, consuming 1000 command points.
Class command mech Stargazer, entering manufacturing process, consuming 1000 command points, estimated completion in 48 hours.
Remaining command points 3230. Tang Xiao nodded, the plan in his mind gradually taking shape.
With these three class intelligent mechs at his command, he was certain many future troubles would be saved. Yet amidst the joy, worries lingered like a shadow. With only 3230 command points left, what other methods could he use to increase them? Every time he asked the deep space relic, the only response was silence. This machine race really is something, hiding the ways to increase command points and not even listing them.
Tang Xiao muttered, running his hand through his hair in frustration.
The inferno beside him spoke up at the right moment, its mechanical voice carrying a steady tone. Lord, the deep space relic is currently only at level 1. Once it upgrades, perhaps more permissions will gradually unlock. Tang Xiao nodded slowly. He was well aware of this, but for now there was no choice but to feel his way forward like crossing a river by touching the stones. Time flew by like a galloping horse, and in the blink of an eye another month had passed. Under the scorching sun on the playground, Tang Xiao abruptly stopped, sweat rolling down his jawline. He leaned over, hands on his knees, gasping for air, his chest heaving violently, clearly having just endured a physical test. Host's daily activities have tempered the body. Reward 15 command points. Remaining command points 3,600. Tang Xiao collapsed onto the grass, sigh accumulating bit by bit. Like this, when will I ever reach the 100,000 points needed for the base upgrade? Meanwhile, in the distant headquarters of the Oran Federation, the atmosphere in the top-floor meeting room was colder than the dead of winter. Around the long conference table, everyone's faces were grim. A military officer slammed the table and boomed, "What the hell is going on? Where did those mechs that suddenly appeared come from? Could it be a secret weapon developed by Yuan? Or the work of the Karelia Empire?" The refined man in the center adjusted his glasses, staring at the intelligence reports on the table, and said in a grave tone, "In just over a month, several military bases and numerous key mineral veins across the Federation have been attacked with losses incalculable. It's unlikely to be the Karelia Empire." Another man from the intelligence department immediately shook his head. "According to reliable sources, their territory has also been hit by the same type of mechs, and their losses are no smaller than ours. This is an outright declaration of war." The middle-aged man in the corner suddenly stood up, his voice hoarse with anger. "In this day and age, what war doesn't have the shadow of a great power behind it? What the hell do they want? Especially that muddy mess in the Middle East. On the surface it's two small countries fighting, but behind the scenes it's still the Karelia Empire, Yuan and Mingchi vying for control." The meeting room fell into a brief dead silence. "Enough." The elderly man at the head of the table spoke slowly. He was Ryan, the elected leader of the Oran Federation. Time had carved deep furrows into his face, but his eyes remained as sharp as an eagle's. "The Oran Federation is no longer the world's hegemon it was centuries ago. Now we either squeeze onto the table to get a share, or we end up as someone else's meal. So from now on we must unite against a common enemy and find out where these mechs came from." The old man's words weighed heavily on everyone's hearts. A storm seemed to be brewing, silently poised to sweep across the world. Tang Xiao returned to his rented apartment, opened the banking app on his phone and looked at the balance, 176,500 yuan. A smile involuntarily crept onto his lips. This amount of money earned from the Panji initiation ceremony was a figure he couldn't have imagined just a few months ago. At that time he was still a poor student struggling for his daily meals, and not only was he not worried about his own sustenance, but he also possessed an Iron Legion capable of shocking the world. Tang Xiao's mind stirred and the space rippled slightly. In the next moment he had appeared on the metallic ground of the mechanical tribe's first-level base. "Welcome, Lord." Two deep mechanical voices sounded simultaneously, clearly filled with respect. Tang Xiao raised his gaze to see two class intelligent battle armors standing with their heads bowed. The one on the left was indeed Pajun. It was constructed entirely of matte black metal, its lines sharp as if chiseled by a knife, each piece of armor exuding a heavy sense of oppression, with shoulder guards protruding outward to form sharp angles and a dark red energy core embedded in its chest, faintly glowing when activated, resembling a black giant beast filled with destructive power. On the other side was Guanxing. It was relatively slender, its smooth deep blue armor outlining a wasp waist and tiger back athletic silhouette, with streamlined shoulder guards extending back, intricate silver patterns at the joints exuding precision and agility, presenting a stark contrast to Pajun's heavy dominance. Tang Xiao nodded slightly, his gaze sweeping over his own Iron Spine Guardian battle armor. Compared to Pajun and Guanxing, this class intelligent battle armor indeed fell slightly short in refinement and oppressive aura. However, he did not dwell on it, walking briskly toward the base's core chamber. Seeing the upgrade progress bar next to the core chamber, only 3 more crystal ores were needed to complete the upgrade. He couldn't help but curve his lips in anticipation. Though the command points were only 3,600 at present, he knew that as long as he continued to train and improve, they would gradually increase. Just as he was pondering, a system prompt echoed in his mind. "Host, the Yan Yu battle armor has acquired another crystal ore. Please activate the furnace." "Very good." Tang Xiao's smile deepened as he nodded in response. Soon Yan Yu, stepping heavily, entered and accurately placed the softly glowing crystal ore into the furnace core. Tang Xiao's gaze inadvertently swept over Yan Yu's left arm, only to discover a noticeable dent in the armor there, with charred traces remaining, clearly showing signs of damage. "Are you injured?" Tang Xiao hurriedly asked, a hint of barely perceptible tension in his tone. Yan Yu's mechanical eye flickered briefly, responding truthfully, "Reporting to Lord, during a mission at the Mingchi Nation's military base I encountered enemy anti-air fire and my left arm sustained minor damage which does not affect core functions." Tang Xiao's brow furrowed slightly as his gaze turned to the data panel beside the base's control console. It clearly displayed the losses incurred over the past month. Several Tier 1 mechanical infantry and mechanical dogs had been destroyed in multiple operations. He gently sighed, silently pondering. It seems that I still cannot underestimate the military strength of these nations. Even with the support of battle armors and mechanical troops, direct confrontation inevitably incurs losses. Tang Xiao rubbed his chin, murmuring, right now all countries must be in chaos due to the attacks on the base and the mineral veins. They might already be searching for traces of the attackers. Although we have the fog system to provide camouflage, it is still relatively safe for the time being, but we must not let our guard down. He raised his eyes to Pajun and Guanxing, speaking in a serious tone. For the time being all actions should be as discreet as possible. Unless necessary, we must not provoke anyone. Our strength is not yet fully formed. We cannot be besieged now or we will suffer great losses. The 3-class intelligent battle armors responded in unison. Understood, Lord. Tang Xiao gazed at the crystal ore gradually transforming into mechanical points within the furnace, clearly understanding that maintaining a low profile while developing and accumulating strength was the most prudent choice at present. One crystal ore transformed into pure mechanical points and flowed into the base's energy core, causing the progress bar's numbers to quietly shift. Tang Xiao looked at the prompt indicating that only 2 crystal ores remained for the upgrade, tapping his fingers against the edge of the control console, suddenly turning to Yin Yu. What is the defense strength of the Ming-Chi nation's military base? The enemy has deployed the Sky Dome anti-air system equipped with 300 short-range ballistic missiles supported by 41 Iron Rhino main battle tanks and 72 infantry fighting vehicles along with 12 self-propelled artillery pieces forming a firepower net. Yen Yes mechanical voice remained steady, accurately reporting the data. According to calculations, their firepower density is 30% higher than that of the Orlan Federation's forward base, and the underground works are equipped with electromagnetic interference devices capable of incapacitating precision electronic devices within a 5-kilometer radius. But it has no impact on us. Tang Xiao paused, his brows furrowing slightly. It seems that the military foundation of these nations is far deeper than he imagined, especially a country like the Ming-Chi nation that has always valued military buildup beneath the surface defenses. Who knows how many hidden cards they still possess? He suddenly felt as if he were walking on a tightrope suspended in midair with an unfathomable abyss beneath him. One misstep could lead to utter ruin. Pajun. Tang Xiao suddenly spoke. Go check the existing mechanical infantry and mechanical dogs. Those that are damaged should be sent to the repair chamber immediately. Also expand the security perimeter of the base by another 10 miles, employing thermal sensors and sonar detection. Any danger approaching must be reported immediately. Understood, Lord. Pajun's heavy armor emitted a dull sound of metal friction. Guanxing then stepped forward, the surface of its deep blue armor shimmering with a faint glow. Lord, do you need me to infiltrate the networks of the surrounding countries to gather intelligence on their military movements? Tang Xiao shook his head. Not for now. He walked to the holographic sand table in the center of the base, his fingertip gliding over the area representing his own Lanchuan nation. Right now invading the network recklessly would only leave traces behind. What we need to do is hide until the base upgrades, to hide until we have enough strength to deal with any sudden situations. He paused, his gaze landing on the small red dot on the sand table representing his base, his tone becoming resolute. Once the base upgrades to level 2 and unlocks the spaceborne aircraft carrier combat robots and vehicle-mounted automated weapon stations as well as 6-legged main battle robots, we will reassess the situation then. Tang Xiao's gaze shifted away from the light screen, asking in a deep voice, currently the base upgrade is only 2 crystal ores away. Yen Yu. Guanxing, do you have any leads on your end? Guanxing's deep blue armor sensors flickered with a faint glow, responding, Lord, we have detected significant crystal ore energy fluctuations at a mineral vein in the Middle East. The signal strength indicates that the number of crystal ores there should be more than one. Middle East. Tang Xiao tapped on the area of the sand table that had long been plagued by war. It's quite a mixed bag of fish and dragons there. He nodded. Then let's proceed as planned. Act discreetly and bring the crystal ores back without causing too much commotion. Having resolved the matter of the mineral crystals, Tang Xiao walked back from the base to his rented room and cast a glance at the cramped 20 square meter space. He fished his phone out of his pocket, stared at the over 170000 yuan in his balance and mused to himself, it's about time I found a bigger place, at least somewhere I can catch my breath in the real world. Yet the moment he opened a rental app and scrolled through the prices of nearby neighborhoods, his brow instantly furrowed into a knot. A somewhat decent apartment cost nearly 10,000 a month in rent, and when he checked second-hand housing prices the figures in the millions stung his eyes. This little bit of money is still just a drop in the bucket. Tang Xiao slumped into a chair and let out a self-deprecating laugh. After all, he still had to live in the real world, pay tuition, cover daily expenses. Looks like making money really needs to be a top priority. After a moment of thought, Tang Xiao suddenly slapped his thigh. Got it. The base had the technology to detect mineral veins. Wasn't that an obvious advantage right in front of him? He immediately contacted Yen Yu. Yen Yu, respond as soon as you receive this. Almost instantly Yen Yu's voice echoed in his mind, Lord, I am here. Tang Xiao lowered his voice and said, compile a batch of purely civilian mineral vein intelligence, data on non-military civilian use deposits like low-grade iron ore in certain mountain ranges or non-metallic minerals in some desert. Anonymously post this information on the dark web and sell it to small and medium-sized exploration companies or mining bosses. He paused, then emphasized, also any ordinary ores you've seized on missions that you can't use, sell them through encrypted channels on the underground mineral trading market at a price slightly below market rate.
Understood. Understood, Lord. I will execute immediately.
Yan Yes' reply was without a hint of hesitation. Cutting the communication, Tang Xiao gazed at the bustling street outside the window, a faint smile curling at the corners of his mouth as a sense of assurance slowly settled in his heart. The next morning Tang Xiao walked into the classroom in high spirits. He had barely sat down for 2 minutes when the homeroom teacher stepped up to the podium with lesson plans and announced with a smile, next weekend our class is organizing a camping trip to Qingfeng Mountain on the outskirts.
Well, experience 2 days of wilderness life. Everyone get prepared.
The classroom erupted instantly. Students cheered and discussed what tents to bring and what snacks to eat, but Tang Xiao alone furrowed his brow. At a crowded campsite with so many eyes around, there was no way he could secretly activate a spatial warp to return to the base.
Tang Xiao raised his hand and said, "Teacher, can I take leave?" Then he murmured, "I have something to do this weekend." The teacher waved a hand dismissively, "No can do. This camping trip is a class group activity. Unless there's a special circumstance, everyone must attend. It's a perfect chance for you bookworms to get in touch with nature."
Just as Tang Xiao was about to come up with another excuse, Zhang Yuanshu beside him suddenly let out a sneer and deliberately raised his voice. "Oh, Tang Xiao, you're not worried about the camping expenses, are you? I heard you made a little money fixing things for people a while back. What can't bear to part with it?" He paused, then added in a low but clear tone, "Or did you break someone's stuff and are busy paying for the damages? Why else are you always so evasive?" A few snickers rippled around them.
Tang Xiao's expression darkened.
Zhang Yuanshu had always loved to needle him and in the past had often jabbed at him for being poor. Now seeing him refuse the camping trip, he was at it again. No sooner had Zhang Yuanka's words fallen than Su Shiwei, sitting in the front row, turned her head back. Her delicate brows knitted slightly as she looked at him and said, "Zhang Yuanshu, don't be so sarcastic.
Tang Xiao earns money by fixing things, it's honest work. That's far better than some people who only know how to run their mouths."
Her voice was clear and carried an irrefutable seriousness, instantly silencing the snickers around them. Zhang Yuanshu was taken aback for a moment, then leaned in with a smirk. "Oh, the beautiful Su was sticking up for him.
Last time I saw you two eating together at the noodle shop by the school gate. And now you're covering for him again. Could it be
that you've fallen for him?" A loud roar of laughter erupted throughout the class and many students started making suggestive faces at the pair. Su Zaiwei's cheeks flushed crimson as she retorted, "What nonsense are you talking?" The scene was about to spiral out of control when the teacher slammed the podium. Silence.
The classroom fell into dead silence.
The teacher scowled and swept a glance around. "We're in class.
What's all this nonsense?"
"Student Su Shiwei is right, earning a living with one's skills deserves recognition. As for the camping trip, we'll say it again, the whole class must attend, no exceptions.
Now focus your minds and get back to the lesson."
Tang Xiao stole a glance at Su Zaiwei's reddened ears, feeling a twinge of guilt, then shot a glare at Zhang Yuanshu. The camping trip was set in stone with no room for negotiation. He could only calculate in his mind Qingfeng Mountain wasn't too far from the city. If it came down to it, he'd find an excuse to slip away alone, use the Panji initiator to warp back to the base, then warp back to the transmitter under his rented bed and immediately race back to Qingfeng Mountain. Before he knew it, noon arrived. As the bell rang for class dismissal, students streamed toward the stairwell in clusters. Tang Xiao, however, blocked Zhang Yuanshu at the back door of the classroom just as he was about to step out.
"What do you want?"
Zhang Yuanshu halted mid-step, a flicker of vigilance flashing in his eyes as he turned back. Yet his hand instinctively waved behind him. The several lackeys who were always glued to his side had just reached the hallway corner but immediately doubled back, encircling Tang Xiao in a semicircle of 5. Still remembering the time this kid had grabbed him by the ankle, Zhang Yuanshu rubbed his nose and thought bitterly, so what if he knew a few moves? 5 against 1, today he'd make sure Tang Xiao ended up on the ground. "Don't go too far from now on," Tang Xiao said, his voice flat.
Zhang Yuanshu let out a scoff. "Who do you think you are?" He stepped half a pace forward, deliberately bumping his shoulder into Tang Xiao. "I'll go as far as I want. What are you going to do about?"
Before he could finish, Tang Xiao's fist slammed into his abdomen. A dull thud rang out as Zhang Yuanshu clutched his stomach, still reeling. "Brother Chu!" The lackeys erupted and the two in front lunged with a roar, one swinging a fist at his face, the other kicking at his gut.
Tang Xiao sidestepped the punch, snatched the attacker's wrist and pulled him forward.
As the guy stumbled off balance, Tang Xiao drove his knee hard into his ribs, sending him curling to the ground in pained gasps. He blocked the other's kick with his arm, used the recoil to spin around and landed a kick squarely on the shin. The lackey screamed, clutching his leg as he rolled away. But the remaining 3 had already closed in. Tang Xiao dodged a chokehold from one only to feel his waist locked from behind, both arms seized by the other 2 with a grip as tight as iron clamps. He struggled to break free, but they pressed him down with all their strength, the knee digging into his back until his face was nearly touching the cold tiles.
Damn it, still trying to fight.
Zhang Yuanshu finally recovered, striding over with a vicious grin as he raised his foot to stomp on Tang Xiao's head. Just then Tang Xiao's gaze turned icy. Activate first level nano-exoskeleton attachment module. Initiating activation of the first level nano-exoskeleton attachment module within the host's body. As Tang Xiao activated the first level nano-exoskeleton attachment module, he felt his entire body lighten as if an invisible force had been infused into his bones. The strength that had been restraining him suddenly became as fragile as paper. He slightly lowered his shoulders and abruptly thrust his arms outward. The two men gripping his arms felt a sharp pain in their wrists, involuntarily releasing their hold and staggering backward.
Zhang Yuanka's face changed dramatically at the sight. He quickly retreated a few steps, his eyes filled with disbelief.
A nearby man rubbing his numb wrist exclaimed in shock, "How did this kid's strength suddenly become so immense?" Before the words faded, Tang Xiao had already moved. He dashed like lightning, charging at the nearest person. Before the man could react, a swift punch struck his face, sending blood gushing from his nose as he flew backward with a scream. Another lackey who had just steadied himself threw a punch.
Tang Xiao neither dodged nor evaded, raising his arm to block.
The opponent felt as if his fist had struck a steel plate, and it was he who howled in pain. Tang Xiao seized his arm and twisted it sharply. With a scream, the lackey collapsed to the ground, clutching his arm and going limp.
The last remaining lackey, his legs trembling with fear, turned to flee. Tang Xiao stepped forward and delivered a whip kick to the back of his knee.
The man lost his balance and fell to his knees with a thud.
Tang Xiao followed up with another kick, sending him rolling on the ground in agony.
In mere moments, the once arrogant group lay on the ground, leaving only Zhang Yuanshu standing alone, his face as pale as paper, his body trembling uncontrollably.
Tang Xiao strode forward and landed a punch on Zhang Yuanka's stomach.
Zhang Yuanshu curled up on the ground, grimacing in pain, yet still stubbornly shouted, "You're finished.
Fighting at school will get you punished."
Tang Xiao looked down at him with a cold gaze and said, "I was acting in self-defense." With that, he delivered another punch, neither too hard nor too soft, to Zhang Yuanka's stomach. Zhang Yuanshu let out a pained yelp, completely unable to speak, and could only roll on the ground, clutching his belly.
Just then, hurried footsteps echoed from the end of the corridor.
Several students who had been peeking from around the corner ran over with a teacher. As the teacher entered the corridor, they saw students groaning on the floor and Tang Xiao standing in the middle, their brow instantly furrowed. Tang Xiao reacted swiftly. Before the teacher could speak, he clutched his stomach and fell to the ground, forcing a pained expression on his face. "Teacher! The 5 of them were ganging up on me.
I almost got beaten to death."
Zhang Yuanshu lay on the ground, gasping in pain.
Hearing this, he was stunned.
Hadn't this kid just beaten the 5 of them into submission? How had the story been flipped? He wanted to refute, but the pain left him unable to utter a single complete sentence. All he could do was glare at Tang Xiao with a mix of frustration and fury. The scene shifted to the office. The teacher looked at the bruised and swollen students, frowned, and instructed classmates to escort them to the infirmary. Then, turning to face Zhang Yuanshu and Tang Xiao, the teacher first scolded Zhang Yuanshu for forming cliques to bully classmates, and then chided Tang Xiao for not seeking help from a teacher and resorting to violence. Finally, the teacher waved a hand dismissively. "Let it slide this time. Go back and reflect on your actions. If this happens again, I won't be lenient." Zhang Yuanshu, seething with anger, could only nod grudgingly. His gaze at Tang Xiao seemed to spit fire. This kid could fight and was such a good actor. Leaving the office, Zhang Yuanshu clutched his stomach, grimacing in pain. Tang Xiao glanced at him and said coldly, "Stay out of my way from now on. Provoke me once and I'll hit you every time." With that, he turned and walked away. Zhang Yuanshu stared at his retreating back with venomous hatred, his fists clenched tightly. Tang Xiao ignored him and headed straight for the school cafeteria. After getting his meal, he was about to find a seat when he noticed Su Shiwei waving at him from a nearby table. Tang Xiao hesitated for a moment before deciding to walk over to her. Just as he was about to reach the table, the first-level nanoskeletal attachment module inside him, still active, suddenly stirred without warning. It felt like a faint electric current coursed through his limbs, causing a slight tremor. Tang Xiao's heart tightened. He quickly focused his mind to suppress it, finally stabilizing it and promptly deactivating the module. He frowned, filled with confusion. This module typically only reacted when sensing danger, and the movement just now carried a strange alertness. It was a situation he had never encountered before. Following the direction the module had sensed, Tang Xiao's gaze fell on a table diagonally across from him. A clean-cut young man in a white shirt sat there, eating quietly and alone. His profile was soft and unremarkable, seemingly ordinary. Sensing Tang Xiao's gaze, Chen Li looked up and met his eyes. His expression was calm, even carrying a hint of detachment, before he looked away and resumed eating his meal as if nothing had happened. Tang Xiao averted his gaze without showing any change, silently musing, could I be mistaken? He sat down beside Su Shiwei, who asked with a smile, why are you so late for lunch?
Tang Xiao replied casually, it's fine.
There are fewer people at this hour, so no crowding.
Remembering the morning's events, he said earnestly, by the way, thanks for helping me out. Su Shiwei waved her hand, her eyes curving into crescents. No need to thank me. Besides, you fixed that old radio for my grandpa. He listens to opera on it every day now. I haven't even thanked you yet.
She added that radio is my grandpa's treasure. It was broken for ages and even the repair shop said it couldn't be fixed.
You actually managed to repair it. That's impressive. Tang Xiao smiled. No problem. If there's anything else that needs fixing, just give it to me. He instinctively glanced again at the clean-cut young man across the room. The latter had finished eating and was wiping his mouth with a napkin, never looking back. Night fell.
In the depths of the mechanical races base, the main control room was illuminated only by the faint blue glow of screens on Tang Xiao's face. His fingers tapped lightly on the console as he stared intently at the data streams about the nano-exoskeleton module on the floating screen. The strange disturbance at the cafeteria that day still weighed heavily on his mind.
Deep Space Remnant, he asked, could the abnormal reaction of the nano module today be a sensor error?
Or has it been in my body too long and developed a malfunction?
Mechanical race standard equipment has no such defects. The compatibility rate of nano units with the host's physiological system is 99.7
with no safety risks. If the host has concerns, a system self-check can be initiated.
Tang Xiao, still uneasy, followed the suggestion and started the self-check.
Data streams refreshed like a waterfall, displaying the activity levels from the core chip to the peripheral nano units, ultimately settling on a green indicator reading all normal. That proves something is indeed wrong with that direction or that person, Tang Xiao pondered to himself. At that moment within the base, Tang Xiao was deep in thought as the red alarm light on the main console flickered urgently across the sea. The class intelligent command type battle armor observation star, while returning with the mineral crystals, has suffered a saturation attack. Energy shield remaining at 37.
Requesting support. Coordinates an uninhabited area in the Middle East. Support. Send support immediately. Tang Xiao shot to his feet, his gaze sharpening like a blade. Patch me through to observation star's live feed.
The floating screen switched instantly, revealing a desert battlefield shrouded in smoke and gunfire.
Observation star clad in silver blue armor wove through the hail of artillery.
Several missiles trailing fiery tails hurtled in from different directions. Ground-based turrets spewed lethal beams at a rate of 10 rounds per second, and the armor's shoulder defense plates were already marked with charred scars. Dozens of tanks had set up their turrets behind the sand dunes, their muzzles flashing in rapid succession. Dense ranks of soldiers on the ground, rifles raised, formed a crossfire net that pinned down the mechanized infantry. Above, fighter squadrons rained down cannon fire like a torrent, forcing observation star into constant evasive maneuvers. In the distance, several supersonic missiles streaked toward observation star. How can there be such firepower in the Middle East? Tang Xiao stared at the projected live feed in bewilderment, then immediately ordered Blaze Inferno Army Breaker take the space jump device and support observation star at once. As his words faded, the base's alloy gate slid open slowly. Blaze Inferno and Mountain Breaker shot forth like arrows from a bow, slicing through the night sky as they raced toward observation star's location.
Tang Xiao kept his eyes fixed on the screen, his expression growing heavier by the second.
On the screen, the mechanized infantry continued their relentless charge through a storm of bullets, but under the enemy's dense barrage they were like leaves battered by a tempest, falling one after another.
We can't wait any longer.
Tang Xiao clenched his fist and barked into the communicator. Observation star, find a way to lure the enemy fighters near the first-tier reconnaissance cloud.
I'll initiate the cloud's self-destruct sequence. Hold out until Blaze Inferno and Army Breaker arrive. Understood, Lord. Observation star replied crisply.
It abruptly climbed in altitude, narrowly dodging a beam from a ground turret. Simultaneously, the missile bay on its shoulder snapped open.
2 homing missiles screeched forth, striking an enemy plane's engine with pinpoint accuracy. The enemy aircraft, trailing black smoke, spiraled uncontrollably toward the ground.
Seizing the opening, observation star adjusted its course and flew toward the distant, barely visible first-tier reconnaissance cloud zone with several enemy fighters in hot pursuit.
As the enemy fighters entered the reconnaissance cloud's range, Tang Xiao, though reluctant, activated the self-destruct sequence.
A blinding white light erupted, accompanied by a thunderous explosion. The shockwave swept away the surrounding clouds and the pursuing fighters were instantly engulfed in a sea of fire, plummeting into the desert. Tang Xiao watched as the ground fire continued to rage.
He needed to hit them again hard. Activate the stealth fighters.
Initiate a high-altitude saturation bombing on the ground fire points. He ordered into the communicator, then added, switch the drone swarm to self-destruct mode.
Target enemy infantry clusters.
The moment the command was given, two stealth-coated fighters dove from the clouds, raining bombs onto the ground turrets. Meanwhile, the drones that had been covering the mechanized infantry transformed into small missiles, their sharp whirs piercing the air as they charged into the dense enemy ranks. Boom, boom, continuous explosions kicked up towering clouds of sand in the desert, and the base direction instantly became a blazing inferno. Tang Xiao stared at the constantly updating explosion coordinates on the screen, his expression complex. He knew better than anyone that the authority to initiate self-destruct was extremely high. Apart from himself, not even the Threeb-class battle armors, Blaze Inferno, Army Breaker and Observation Star, had the power to use it. But at this moment, to save Observation Star, he had no choice but to break the rules, even at the cost of losing a batch of elite equipment. Tang Xiao urgently called out, "Observation Star, return with the mineral crystals at once." "As you command, Lord." Observation Star's mechanical voice replied succinctly. Just then a fighter squadron locked onto Observation Star and swooped in. Tang Xiao saw the red dots on the radar. "There are more. What is going on?" Tang Xiao realized this place was far from simple. As he sank into thought, two streaks of light tore through the night sky. Blaze Inferno and Army Breaker had finally arrived. Blaze Inferno's fuselage was wreathed in scorching heat waves. As its cannon swept across, it turned an enemy fighter into a fireball. Mountain Breaker was even more ferocious. Its shoulder-mounted heavy cannons roared in succession, destroying 3 enemy planes in mere seconds and tearing a gaping hole in the enemy formation. Tang Xiao immediately ordered the 2 battle armors Blaze Inferno, Army Breaker full fire suppression. Cover Observation Star and the remaining units in their retreat. "Roger that, Lord." 2 mechanical voices replied in unison. Blaze Inferno circled at low altitude, pinning down the ground turrets with intense fire, while Mountain Breaker kept watch at high altitude, preventing any enemy aircraft from approaching the retreat route. Seizing the opportunity, Observation Star, dragging its damaged frame, directed the remaining mechanized infantry to quickly regroup and fall back. The stealth fighter squadrons rapidly gained altitude and soon vanished into the night, leaving behind only the still burning battlefield and the fading roar of engines. Tang Xiao stared at the retreating units on the screen. His taut nerves relaxed slightly, but his brow remained deeply furrowed. Sometime later, Observation Star staggered into the base's core chamber. Its silver blue shell was covered in scorched bullet scars, and the energy shield generator on its left arm had completely gone dark. Observation Star tossed 2 rhomboid mineral crystals into the furnace's energy slot. A prompt suddenly popped up on the console's holographic screen. Base upgrade conditions: updated command points required for level 2 base 10000, current command points 3610. A flicker of joy crossed Tang Xiao's face, then he looked at the battered Observation Star. "Good work." His tone shifted abruptly. "How did the engagement start?" Observation Star's mechanical voice reported, "We were returning with the mineral crystals when we encountered an enemy fighter squadron returning to base. They locked onto us and opened fire first." Tang Xiao walked over to the tactical sand table, his fingertip tracing the virtual projection of the Middle East region. He didn't know how many secret bases lay hidden there, but any force capable of dealing such a blow to his units was no ordinary adversary. Meanwhile, in the underground chamber of the Karelia Empire, Reagan, a class base, an elderly man's voice said urgently. "That's the Empire's eye in the Middle East, one of our most heavily invested bases." "Are you telling me it was attacked?" The officer before him had cold sweat soaking his forehead. "In class fighter squadron on return flight spotted a suspicious mecha crossing our airspace. After the exchange of fire, 50% of the ground facilities were destroyed, but the invaders have been repelled." The old man shot to his feet. "How much was lost?" 50%. "But actual assessment shows core area damage exceeds 60%. The officer's voice grew quieter. "Even the local country might not know about that base yet. Now it's been ravaged by an unknown force." The old man slowly sat back down and said in a grave tone, "Convene a meeting immediately." Tang Xiao watched Guan Xing enter the repair center, and as the metal door closed, his gaze fell back on the holographic map on the console. "I must upgrade to level 2 as soon as possible." He tapped lightly on the command point balance figure. Only the last segment was needed to fill the progress bar. At this critical juncture, any rash action could bring disaster upon himself. After a moment's thought, he issued orders to Yan Yu and Prashan beside him. At this stage, apart from the first-level reconnaissance cloud and the first-level terrain exploration bugs deployed outside, all defensive units are to expand their alert range. Until the base is upgraded to level 2, all units stand by. As he spoke, the yellow alert zone on the holographic map abruptly expanded outward. Before gathering the final portion of command points, he had to hold steady. The weekend arrived, and on Qingfeng Mountain the teachers had set up tents. Su Shiwei was crouched on a picnic mat with a few classmates sharing snacks. She turned to look at Tang Xiao, who sat on a rock staring into space. "Tang Xiao, do you want some?" Tang Xiao snapped out of his daze and forced a faint smile. Just as he was about to walk over, his gaze inadvertently swept across a barbecue area not far away. A handsome boy in a white down jacket was helping teacher Zhang pass charcoal. His profile looked somewhat familiar.
Tang Xiao frowned slightly.
The boy turned around just then. It was Chen Li whom he had encountered in the cafeteria last time. Tang Xiao sat down beside Su Shiwei. The classmates included some from his own class and some from the neighboring one. At that moment a classmate named Lin Yu asked Tang Xiao, "Do you know Chen Li from our class?" "Then why were you staring at him when you came over just now?"
Lin Yu asked curiously.
Tang Xiao suddenly realized that the guy from earlier was called Chen Li. Pretending to be casual he said, "Oh, I just ran into him in the cafeteria."
"What kind of person is he?"
Lin Yu picked a jelly to eat and then said, "He's just someone who doesn't talk much and he always seems to keep people at a distance.
Anyway, he's pretty mysterious."
Tang Xiao nodded silently, but his mind was preoccupied with the strange reaction of the nanoskeleton in the cafeteria last time. Night fell and the campfire at the Qingfeng Mountain campsite crackled, illuminating the faces of Su Shiwei, Tang Xiao and a few others.
6 people sat around the fire in a circle.
"Hey, have you heard?" Zhang Xiao from class 1 rubbed his hands, excitement shining in his eyes. "The elders say that immortals live on Qingfeng Mountain."
"Isn't there a cave in the back mountain?"
"Maybe if we go pay respects our future jobs will go smoothly and we'll find a partner sooner." Curiosity flickered in the eyes of the 3 girls.
Lin Yu laughed and said, "Really? That sounds so interesting.
Let's go take a look, it's not far and it'll be an adventure."
Li Meng chimed in as well. Tang Xiao frowned.
He felt that going to the dark back mountain at night was unreliable, but he couldn't resist everyone's urging, "Tang Xiao, don't be such a killjoy."
"Exactly. The more people the more fun."
Su Shiwei turned to look at him, a hint of a smile at the corner of her mouth. "Let's go check it out.
Who knows, there might be a surprise." Tang Xiao looked at their eager faces, sighed and finally nodded.
The group grabbed flashlights and followed the boy who had made the suggestion toward the back mountain. They had barely walked a few steps out of the campsite when the flashlight beam swept across a slope not far away. Chen Li stood with his back to them, hands in his pockets, gazing up at the night sky. His silhouette looked solitary in the darkness.
"Chun-Li."
Lin Yu was the first to walk over, her voice breaking the surrounding silence. "Why are you here alone staring at the night sky?" Chen Li turned around, his face expressionless, and replied flatly, "Just getting some air."
"Perfect."
Zhang Xiao came over waving his flashlight. "We're going to the cave in the back mountain.
They say you can pray to the immortals for blessings. Want to come along?"
Chen Li's eyes suddenly sharpened, but the look vanished in an instant, softening again. He looked at the enthusiastic college students and in a rare serious tone said, "Don't go.
The back mountain isn't safe at night and there's nothing worth seeing in that cave."
"Oh, what danger could there be?" Wang Hao, standing beside Zhang Xiao, waved his hand dismissively. "There are plenty of us.
We're just going for the fun of it." At their age, once curiosity was piqued, no amount of persuasion could stop them. Tang Xiao stood behind, quietly observing Chen Li.
He felt that the look in Chen Li's eyes just now was off, not merely concerned but as if he knew something he didn't want to say and was deliberately stopping them. Zhang Xiao, already annoyed that Chen Li was spoiling the fun, now saw him still trying to dissuade them and retorted bluntly, "If you don't want to come then don't.
Well, go by ourselves. Anyway, you like being alone." Chen Li watched them all, eager to go, knowing it was useless to say more.
His lips moved, but in the end he said nothing. He only cast a deep glance in the direction of the back mountain, then turned and silently walked toward another spot outside the campsite, his figure quickly swallowed by the night. After Chen Li's figure disappeared, the group regained their earlier enthusiasm, chatting and laughing all the way, flashlight beams dancing through the woods, startling nightbirds from the branches. Tang Xiao walked at the back of the group. With a slight movement of his fingers, several scout bees, nearly invisible in the darkness, flew out, silently dispersing to survey the surroundings. Before long, a pitch-black cave mouth appeared beneath a rocky cliff. By the light they could see a rusty wooden sign nailed above the entrance. "No entry." The 4 red characters, though peeling, were still conspicuous.
"Ha!"
Zhang Xiao frowned, walked up and touched the sign. "Why isn't this cave open anymore? I came here with someone 2 years ago and we could go in freely then." Su Shiwei peered into the cave. It was pitch black inside.
She couldn't help tugging Lin Yu's arm. "Let's forget it. It says no entry.
We should go back and not cause trouble. What's there to be afraid of?" Wang Hao shone his flashlight inside the beam sweeping across the cave walls, then said, "Since we're here, let's take a quick look and leave.
We don't have to go deep, right?"
Li Meng chimed in, "Exactly, maybe there's something interesting inside." As the group hesitated, Tang Xiao had already sent a scout bee into the cave. The images it sent back showed nothing unusual near the entrance.
"All right," Wang Hao finally made the decision, "let's take a quick look inside, in and out fast.
Everyone stay close." Tang Xiao said nothing, only walking at the very back of the group. The group ventured deeper into the cave and suddenly the space opened up into a massive cavern.
Stalactites hanging from the ceiling glimmered faintly in the flashlight beams.
Traces of incense and candles remained on the ground, clearly the place where people used to worship. At this moment in a cave hall on Qingfeng Mountain, the surrounding paths crisscrossed with several cave entrances resembling the eyes of a monster, making it difficult to discern which way to go. Through the images transmitted by the reconnaissance bees, Tang Xiao discovered that the interior of the cave was akin to a labyrinth with tangled passages extending into the darkness seemingly endless.
"Look at these stalactites, so magnificent!"
Zhang Chao exclaimed, holding a flashlight and shining it around, proudly stating, "I told you this trip was worthwhile."
The others laughed along, some even reaching out to touch the cool rocks.
However, at that moment a sudden sense of signal disruption struck Tang Xiao's mind as one of the reconnaissance bees was destroyed by something. His expression turned serious and his heart raced. Without time to ponder, he immediately dispatched 2 more reconnaissance bees in the direction of the disturbance. Soon the images relayed back caused Tang Xiao's pupils to constrict. It was a giant black python covered in fine scales, its body as thick as a barrel, slithering through the darkness in a frightening manner.
"Hey! Listen to this echo!"
Wang Hao and Zhang Chao were still shouting in the cave hall, their laughter mixing with the echoes reverberating in the vast cave.
"Stop playing around, let's go!"
Tang Xiao quickly interjected, his voice laced with a hint of urgency. "If we get back late, it'll be troublesome if the teacher finds out."
"What's the rush? Let's play a bit longer," Zhang Chao, still in high spirits, said nonchalantly.
However, Tang Xiao saw clearly through the reconnaissance bees that the giant python was heading toward the cave hall along the passageway. Its speed was not fast, but its intent was clear. He felt a surge of anxiety. Although the iron spine mecha could handle it, he did not want to reveal his identity here. So he quickly walked to Su Ziwei's side, grabbing her arm with a serious expression. Su Shiwei noticed something was off with him and asked with concern, "What's wrong?
Are you feeling unwell?"
"No," Tang Xiao whispered, "we must leave right now."
Su Shiwei looked at his serious face, not asking any further questions, and immediately nodded.
But just then a rustling sound came from the shadows on one side of the cave hall. The giant python had reached the edge of the cave hall, hiding behind oddly shaped rocks, flicking its tongue and slowly approaching the group.
"Oh no!" Tang Xiao whispered urgently, pointing toward the python. "There's a snake! A giant python!"
Everyone was startled and turned to look in that direction, their flashlights collectively shining over, and indeed they saw a massive creature slithering between the rocks, instantly filled with terror.
"Run!"
Someone shouted, and the 6 boys and girls immediately turned and sprinted toward the entrance. In the chaos, Li Meng slipped and fell heavily to the ground. Tang Xiao saw this, hesitated for a moment, but rushed over to help her up, pushing her to run forward. Behind them, the sound of the python slithering drew closer, as if carrying the shadow of death relentlessly pursuing them.
As Tang Xiao helped Li Meng up, he became the last person in the group. The low hiss of the python echoed behind him, carrying a chilling aura. He gritted his teeth and shouted to the people ahead, "You all hurry and get out. Call for help. I'll hold it off."
Everyone halted, their faces filled with shock.
Wang Hao couldn't help but turn back, saying, "Bro, can you handle it alone? No more talking."
Tang Xiao's gaze was sharp as a blade. "If we don't leave now, we'll all be trapped here." Zhang Chao was already terrified, rushing ahead without looking back. Su Shiwei, however, stopped, her eyes slightly red as she looked at him, saying, "If you're going, let's go together. What's with this bravado of yours? Go!" Tang Xiao suddenly shouted, his voice carrying an undeniable authority, and intentionally ran toward another side passage, using the beam of his flashlight to divert the python's attention. "I'll let it this way, you all hurry and get out of the cave." Su Shiwei was pulled away by Wang Hao and Lin Yue, glancing back multiple times as she left. Tang Xiao saw the figures of the others disappear at the tunnel entrance, the corners of his mouth lifting as he inwardly commanded, "Activate Iron Spine Battle Armor." Host activating Iron Spine Battle Armor. As the mechanical prompt sounded, black metal components rapidly formed. The streamlined helmet covered his head, lights glowing in the eye area. Shoulder armor protruded sharp and angular. The chest armor shimmered with a matte metallic sheen. The layers of armor on his arms and legs nested together, revealing intricate gear structures at the joints. In an instant, a powerful and imposing black battle armor enveloped Tang Xiao, accentuating his tall and majestic figure.
"My first combat experience, I'm somewhat looking forward to it."
Tang Xiao moved his neck and the armor emitted a faint mechanical whirring sound. The thrusters beneath him expelled air, his figure suddenly soaring, skillfully maneuvering in the cave to evade the giant python's furious strikes. He opened his palm and the armor deployed several micro-machine guns, firing blue energy bullets like a torrential downpour at the giant python. Tang Xiao deliberately controlled the firepower, only aiming for the gaps between the python's scales to avoid bullets hitting the cave walls and causing a collapse, saying, "Though I can't use heavy weaponry, this should be enough to deal with you." Under the suppression of Tang Xiao's battle armor's firepower, the python's scales crackled under the impact, and in pain it no longer dared to linger, twisting its massive body and frantically fleeing deeper into the cave. Tang Xiao's eyes narrowed, and with the thrusters on his back accelerating, he relentlessly pursued, swiftly navigating through the winding cave passages, continuously firing the machine guns at the massive serpent. As he chased, a sudden loud rumble echoed from above. A massive rock loosened and fell, striking the iron spine battle armor squarely.
Tang Xiao's heart sank. "Oh no.
I was just thinking about not pursuing a beaten foe. How did I end up chasing it in here?" He glanced at the unstable rock walls around him, frowning tightly. At the same time, he couldn't help but marvel, this creature really is tough. After taking so many hits, it can still escape. Tang Xiao raised his left arm, aiming at the rock pressing against him, while a scorching red light ignited in front of his chest. Two red beams instantly intersected like an invisible blade, precisely slicing through. With a sharp sound, the hard rock shattered. He moved his shoulder and looked around. The giant python had already vanished, likely taking the opportunity while he was blocked by falling rocks to forcefully burrow into a deeper crevice.
You ran away quickly. Tang Xiao pouted, feeling too lazy to pursue further, and turned back to fly away.
The urgent matter was to leave the cave quickly to avoid further complications. At that moment, a system prompt suddenly rang in his mind: host combat experience 100 command points. Remaining command points 3900. Tang Xiao paused abruptly, nearly losing balance with the thrusters. Oh! A glimmer of surprise flashed in his eyes. So fighting in person can also increase mechanical points, and even more than just exercising. He had thought that only physical training could accumulate points, but he didn't expect that actual combat was a faster avenue.
This mechanical race setting is indeed quite interesting.
A smile crept onto his lips as he accelerated, the thrusters behind him flying back through the passage he came from. It seemed he needed to find more combat opportunities in the future. Su Shiwei and her companions scrambled back to the campsite in a flurry. The teacher by the bonfire, seeing their panicked faces, was about to ask what had happened when Su Shiwei burst into tears, recounting their ordeal in the cave between sobs. The teacher was both shocked and furious. He scolded them harshly for venturing into the dangerous cave without permission, but did not call the authorities immediately. He calculated that if the incident escalated, he would bear the responsibility for the camping trip gone awry. So he quickly gathered the group and prepared to organize a search party for Tang Xiao in the cave. Just as everyone was getting flashlights and ropes ready, footsteps echoed from the camp entrance and Tang Xiao appeared. He deliberately hunched over, hands on his knees, panting heavily as if he had just escaped death's door.
Tang Xiao.
Su Shiwei spotted him immediately. Her crying ceased abruptly. She rushed over like a madwoman, threw her arms around him, tears still streaming down her face.
Are you okay? That's great. You scared me to death. Tang Xiao felt a bit awkward in her embrace. It's fine, I'm lucky. The snake didn't catch me.
The teacher also hurried over, his face still stern but with a hint of relief.
Tang Xiao. And all of you, this is too reckless. Go get some rest right now. He scolded them again.
Just then, from the edge of the crowd, a faint eerie green light flickered in Chen Li's eyes, so fleeting it could have been an illusion. He looked at Tang Xiao, frowned slightly, and muttered to himself, how strange. Almost the moment the green light flashed, the nanoskeleton within Tang Xiao emitted a subtle hum. Without his command, it activated on its own. This was the second time Tang Xiao had encountered such a phenomenon. His heart jolted and he turned abruptly to look at Chen Li. But Chen Li had already averted his gaze, quietly slipping out of the crowd and heading back to the camp. Tang Xiao stared at the direction where Chen Li had disappeared, lost in thought.
This Chen Li was definitely not ordinary.
In the following weeks, Tang Xiao not only accumulated command points through sparring with Pashin Guanqing and Yenyu, but also discovered a shortcut, the dusty books in the base's storage room.
Reading them attentively also increased his command points.
This filled him with motivation and his command points snowballed to 9982.
He was currently sparring with Pashin, and once this session ended he would be able to upgrade to a second-level base. Pashan charged like an iron tower, his alloy fist aimed at Tang Xiao.
Tang Xiao shifted his footwork, swiftly sidestepping with the agility of his battle armor while deploying an energy blade from the armor's arm to strike at Pashan's flank. The clash of metal was deafening, sparks flying around them. Tang Xiao's gaze was sharp as an eagle's as he continuously adjusted his offensive and defensive rhythm, each dodge and counterattack accumulating experience.
Host sparring 100 command points.
Remaining command points 10080.
As the mechanical prompt faded, Tang Xiao's heart leaped with joy.
He immediately withdrew his attack and strode quickly into the base's core chamber.
Upgrade to second-level base.
Detected host command: upgrade to second-level base. Resource verification: mine crystal X10 sufficient, rare gold entropy X5 sufficient, command points 10000 sufficient.
Upgrade conditions met. Mechanical tribe first-level base upgrade sequence initiated.
Energy core overload engaged, base structure restructuring begins, external armor layer thickening and reinforcing, internal functional modules expanding.
After several hours, the once pitch-black first-level base gradually seemed infused with life. Its matte black exterior transformed into a deep silver gray with fine energy patterns surfacing like flowing blood vessels.
A slender sensing antenna even extended from the top of the base, giving the entire structure a sense of evolved robustness and precision.
Second-level base permissions unlocked, automated mass production module activated. Daily generation of first-level mechanical infantry X50, mechanical dogs X50, reconnaissance bees X50. Small Drones X-20 First Level Stealth Fighter X-1.
Deep Space Exuvii Synchronized Upgrade System Voice Module Optimization complete. The mechanical voice was no longer a monotonous electronic synthesis but carried a steady cadence. Congratulations, host.
Base evolution complete.
Your iron spine battle armor has been reconstructed.
Awaiting naming.
Tang Xiao turned to look at the iron spine armor docked in the chamber. Its original jet black shell had completely faded, replaced by pure white with sharper shoulder pauldron lines. The energy core at the chest emitted a faint golden glow flowing across the white armor. The armor's surface was covered with fine diamond-shaped patterns that glowed subtly upon close inspection.
Please enter a name for the upgraded armor.
The system's tone carried a hint of anticipation. Call it White Emperor, Tang Xiao said with a joyful expression.
White Emperor armor naming successful.
At that moment, the base's control panel displayed a new manufacturing list and the system voice chimed in. Combat unit manufacturing permissions unlocked. Vehicle-mounted automatic weapon station equipped with electromagnetic pulse cannon and armor-piercing ammunition belts. Aerospace carrier equipped with quantum stealth coating and pulse laser cannons capable of limited space jumps carrying up to 100 drone fighters. Combat robot Iron Guard capable of switching between sea, land and air combat forms equipped with particle-cutting blades and shoulder-mounted missile pods. Space multifunctional stealth fighter Shadow equipped with quantum stealth coating pulse laser cannons and micro anti-ship mines capable of both air combat and ground strikes. Mechanical Tribe Heaven's punishment missile Starfall employs antimatter warhead upon impact, creates a micro-annihilation field with a radius of 3 kilometers. Tang Xiao stared at the dense manufacturing list on the control panel, his fingertips gliding over the virtual interface, a smile tugging at his lips. So many powerful pieces of equipment tailor-made as battlefield killers. But when he glanced at the command point cost listed for each item, his joy quickly cooled.
Damn, building just one aerospace carrier would drain most of my savings. As he was calculating, he accidentally scrolled to the base upgrade interface.
When he saw the materials required for the next level, his eyes widened.
Mine Crystal X50, Rare Gold Entropy X10 and Meteorite Fragment X3.
Where the hell do I find that? But seeing that the upgrade would directly reward 15000 command points and checking his remaining balance of 15080, he breathed a sigh of relief.
At least I have a solid foundation. I can take my time and save up.
He steadied himself and selected from the manufacturing list first build 3-class smart battle armors.
Manufacturing Gown Shield Nightblade and Dark Thorn class smart battle armors. Consuming 3000 command points.
Remaining command points 12080.
As the system prompt faded, Tang Xiao looked at the balance and rubbed his chin. Let the base mass-produce mechanical soldiers to gather resources first. I'll keep these command points for emergencies.
After a night had passed, Tang Xiao gazed at 3 brand new great intelligent battle armors standing silently, unable to conceal the excitement in his eyes. Pundi was of grade tank-type battle armor resembling a brown rock embedded in the ground, every piece of armor exuding a weightiness as immovable as a mountain. Ranyue and Ansai were grade assassin-type battle armors like 2 shadows condensed in the air, their metallic luster suppressed by matte coatings so faint they seemed ready to merge into the darkness at any moment.
Adding Pashing, Guanqing and Yenyu, that makes exactly 6.
He raised his hand and patted the chest plate of Pundi, the alloy surface emitting a dull echo. As we develop, guarding just this island is no longer enough. Walking to the holographic projection at the center of the base, a world map unfurled before him, the borders of various nations shifting in light and shadow. His fingertip traced over several areas marked with red warnings, the countries he had offended while plundering crystal ores earlier. After a moment of contemplation, he thought the great powers are untouchable and the small states mostly cling to them. Besides, aside from his own Langua, he had provoked all the major nations.
Perhaps I should build one myself.
Tang Xiao suddenly halted, his gaze fixed on a frozen wasteland far from continental strife, the northern domain. Before he knew it, time flew like a galloping steed and days slipped away like falling petals. Half a year had passed. Tang Xiao walked slowly along the island's shore, gazing at the sea level with 20 great intelligent battle armors following in formation like steel guardians. Ever since the skirmish in the Middle East, he had spent these 6 months lying low and biding his time each day, either sparring with Pashan and Ranyue or devouring stacks of tactical manuals in the base's storage room. 130,000 command points flowed away like water, and he had constructed 2 aerial carriers, Sky Dome 1 and Sky Dome 2. There were Shadow Fighter Squadrons, Iron Guard combat robots, vehicle-mounted weapon stations, hexapod spider robots, and the daily mass-produced mechanical infantry and mechanical dogs. Now Tang Xiao commanded a colossal mechanical legion with only 7,000 command points left in his account, a reserve he deliberately kept as a fallback. He rolled his neck joints, emitting faint cracks, and murmured, "School is about to start again, it's time to relocate to the northern domain." With a subtle thought, the second-tier base nestled at the island's core and gleaming with silver-gray metallic luster was absorbed into the Panji activation device.
A faint smile curled at the corner of Tang Xiao's mouth. Bitey battle armor activate. Command received. Bitey battle armor activating.
The pristine white armor instantly enveloped him, the pale golden energy core at his chest pulsing slowly, transforming him into a war god with an awe-inspiring aura.
Let's go, everyone.
Before Tang Xiao's words faded, the thrusters at his feet erupted with pale blue flames, propelling him like a bolt toward the northern domain.
Yes, Lord.
The 20 great intelligent battle armors echoed in unison behind him. With sharp whistles, 20 figures followed closely, their metallic armors slicing through the air in a seamless stream like a torrent of steel, trailing long streaks of light across the sky. As they departed, the dense fog that had shrouded the island for so long receded like a tide, revealing the leveled ground left by the second-tier base. At a high-level meeting between the Oran Federation and the Karelia Empire, the Oran defense minister slammed his fist on the conference table. Half a year ago, a military base was attacked. Surveillance only captured a group of silver mechanical soldiers moving in perfect unison as if copy-pasted. They punched through us, seized the special minerals, and vanished into thin air. Turning to the Karelia war minister, I heard your level base in the Middle East was also attacked. Has no one traced the source? The Karelia war minister pointed at the mechanical soldiers on the projection. Our intelligence agency investigated 17 countries, even suspecting whether the Oran Federation staged the whole thing. He lowered his head and thought the alloy used in those mechanical soldiers is entirely new, and their core energy technology is at least 50 years ahead of us, perhaps more.
It doesn't match any known faction's handiwork.
Could it be Mingqi or Longhua? Someone interjected.
Impossible.
Their technology hasn't advanced enough to produce such era-defining mechanical soldiers. Immediately another rebutted. I think it's a prehistoric civilization hidden deep within Earth. After all, Earth has existed for
4.5 billion years.
The debate surged and ebbed like tides, the room filled with conjectures. They racked their brains guessing the mastermind behind it all, never imagining that the mysterious force labeled as a top-level threat was a student repairing old goods at Longhua University. The scene shifted. Mighty battle armor descended onto the snowy ground of the northern domain, kicking up a flurry of snow as biting winds and ice shards lashed against the armor.
Tang Xiao looked around. The endless snowfield stretched beyond sight.
From what he knew, only scientific research stations from various countries existed here, nothing else but pure white between heaven and earth. He chose a sheltered ice valley and pressed the Panji activation device. The silver-gray base descended slowly like a colossal beast, soon transforming into a sprawling steel fortress.
Activate defense systems, Tang Xiao commanded in a deep voice. Command received. Fog generation module activated.
At the system's prompt, dense white mist surged from all sides of the ice valley, spreading like a living entity, instantly shrouding the base.
Scout cloud cluster ascending.
Hundreds of scout clouds formed an indistinguishable mass rising to an altitude of 1,000 meters, monitoring all movements within a 100-li radius.
Phantom barrier deploying.
A faint blue energy ripple spread across the base's perimeter. Within the ripple, the base's outline began to warp and fade, appearing to the outside world as an ordinary snowfield. Looking at the base enveloped in multiple layers of defense, Tang Xiao's tone carried a hint of solemnity. From now on, this shall be called the Stellar Empire. Behind him, the 20 great intelligent battle armors knelt on one knee in unison, their alloy joints clanking against the frozen ground in perfect rhythm, their synthesized voices chanting, "We pledge our service to the Lord and the Stellar Empire." Tang Xiao initially wanted to correct their address but stopped himself. The title Lord carried a certain grounded weight, so he let it be. He gazed out at the boundless snowfield, a thin layer of frost accumulating on the pauldrons of his mighty battle armor, and declared in a deep voice, "It's time to let the world know, the Stellar Empire." The plan in his mind had long been set. By bringing the Empire's name into the open, he could openly gather the materials needed to upgrade to a third-tier base. He was well aware that Earth's current technology couldn't even achieve sublight travel, let alone space jump technology. In terms of pure military hard power, he possessed absolute crushing confidence. But he had no intention of flexing his muscles right away. A tall tree catches the wind. If he forced the Oran Federation and Karelia Empire to ally and then draw in Mingqi, a united assault would spell trouble. Though hundreds of nations dotted the world, only 4 truly shaped the global order: his homeland Longhua, Mingqi, the Oran Federation, and the Karelia Empire. Even though he had attacked 3 of them, the principle held: there are no eternal enemies, only eternal interests. This truth applied across the entire universe. At that moment, Lei Xiao was flipping through a book in the storage room of the secondary base. The art of war is the art of deception. A cold smirk curled at the corner of his mouth. They can't figure out the origin of the steel core, can they? Perfect timing to appear before them. If you wish to accuse someone, you will never lack a pretext. Several days later, sunlight spilled across the lawn of the Karelia Empire's estate. It was truly a glorious day. King Carl, leaning on a gem-encrusted cane, was listening to Military Minister Norton's report on border defense, with Foreign Minister Ronald supplementing details on trade negotiations with the Oran Federation. The conversation inevitably circled back to that elusive mechanical legion. "We found no leads so far," as if they appeared out of thin air. Norton's words trailed off as he looked up at the sky, his brows furrowed. "What is that black dot?" Ronald glanced casually and chuckled. "Probably migrating birds.
They're common this season."
King Carl squinted, tapping his aged fingers lightly on the cane head. "No, it's moving too fast."
"It's not a bird. Watch out. It's an attack.
Norton's face changed abruptly. He lunged in front of Carl, shielding the king behind him. The surrounding royal guards reacted instantly, forming a tight circle with loaded weapons, their gun barrels all aimed skyward to protect the high-ranking officials.
The next second the black dot rapidly enlarged in their vision, diving down with a piercing shriek.
It was a suit of pure white battle armor with sharp pauldrons and a pale gold energy core at the chest. Its overwhelming pressure made the guards' hands tremble as they gripped their guns. Inside the white emperor armor, Tang Xiao gazed down at the panicked crowd below, his eyes calm and undisturbed. Before the crowd could recover from the shock, 4 pure black class offensive armors appeared beside the white emperor armor. The energy blades of 2 armors had already extended, gleaming with cold light. The white emperor armor slowly descended, its metal feet landing on the grass with a dull thud. The Pashan armor stepped forward, its deep resonant voice carrying clearly across the lawn. King Carl of the Corellia Empire, I, the Lord of the Starforging Empire, am here.
Please come and meet me. Starforging Empire.
Ronald exclaimed in shock, scattering the documents in his hands.
Norton was thunderstruck.
Just days ago at the Oran Federation meeting they had been debating the origins of this mysterious force, never expecting it to appear so imposingly right in the king's estate. King Carl tightened his grip on the cane, staring at the white armor radiating supreme authority. Shock flickered in his eyes, but he forced calm into his voice. May I ask the purpose of your visit? The white emperor armor emitted a mechanical yet expressive voice. Naturally, it concerns your nation's prolonged stay for investigation within our borders.
Everyone was bewildered. Norton whispered, what stay? What investigation? What is this all about?
Carl asked gravely, please explain yourself more clearly. Inside the white emperor armor, Tang Xiao's mechanical voice carried distinct intonations. Naturally, it concerns your nation's prolonged stay for investigation within our territory.
Norton leaned close to Carl's ear, lowering his voice. Stay. Investigation. When did we ever investigate in any nation's territory? What faction is this?
King Carl asked solemnly, please be clear, my lord. The Pashan armor's metallic voice deepened. Your nation has long conducted joint investigations with other countries in our northern domain. We did not wish to interfere excessively, but in recent years you have repeatedly crossed the invisible border, even deploying detection devices beneath the glaciers to steal geological data.
This is no mere investigation, it is a provocation against our territorial sovereignty.
Foreign Minister Ronald could no longer restrain himself.
He stepped forward and said the northern region has always been an international joint investigation area. For decades no country or group has settled there. How does it suddenly become the territory of your Starforging Empire?
Tang Xiao's voice came through the armor, carrying a faint trace of mockery. Just because you didn't find us you assume we don't exist. By that logic, if someone breaks into your home and ransacks it but doesn't run into the owner, it's not theft. These words struck like a heavy hammer, leaving everyone speechless. The guards' hands trembled as they held their guns. No one had expected the master of this mysterious armor to be so sharp-tongued, leaving no room for rebuttal. King Carl took a deep breath to steady himself. So your nation's earlier attack on our Middle East base was for this?
Correct.
Tang Xiao's reply was concise and cold, with no room for negotiation. Carl stared at the oppressive white armor and asked slowly, then why have you come in person today? Tang Xiao shifted his tone, his voice even softening. Your nation is among the strongest on Blue Star.
The Starforging Empire has just emerged and does not wish to make enemies.
He paused, adding in note of apology, regarding the earlier attack on your base I offer my apologies. As he spoke, the white emperor armor extended a mechanical arm. A pale blue holographic screen materialized before Carl, displaying a detailed resource distribution map. These are the oil and mineral reserves and distribution we detected within your territory, accurate to specific coordinates and burial depth. Consider it a gift of apology from my empire. King Carl's gaze fell on the hologram and his pupils contracted sharply.
Norton and Ronald couldn't resist leaning in to look.
The more they saw, the more astonished they became. The map marked several deep oil fields that the Corellia Empire had spent over a decade trying to locate. The rare earth veins in the southeastern mountains boasted reserves nearly half again as large as existing surveys. Oil and mineral exploration was notoriously time-consuming and costly, often requiring years of work by top-tier teams with advanced equipment to map a single region.
Yet this document was terrifyingly precise.
If the data were accurate, the Corellia Empire could save billions in exploration costs, no longer needing to vie with the Mingqi nation over Middle Eastern oil resources. It was like a mountain of gold handed over for free. King Carl's hand trembled on his scepter as a storm raged in his heart, first a stern accusation, then such a lavish gift. What exactly did this lord of the Starforging Empire intend? Inside the armor, Tang Xiao observed their reactions. His mechanical voice carried a faint smile. Your Majesty, the Starforging Empire does not wish to be your enemy. He paused, scanning the crowd. As for the sovereignty of the northern region, we only require a clear stance. Carl looked at the mysterious white armor and realized for the first time that the landscape of Blue Star might be irrevocably altered by this suddenly appearing empire. Tang Xiao waited in silence within the White Emperor battle armor, his gaze locked onto King Carl's expression. Just then a prompt came through the communication channel detecting the approach of Karelia Imperial Armed Forces 6 formations including tank clusters, armored vehicles, attack helicopters and class fighters. A barely perceptible flicker of relief crossed King Carl's face as he spoke slowly. This matter is of great importance and the sovereignty of the northern domain involves the interests of multiple nations. I must consult with our allies before giving an answer. Please understand. Tang Xiao chuckled lightly. With a raise of the White Emperor battle armor's mechanical arm, the floating holographic document vanished instantly. Since your country cannot decide for now, I shall take my leave. His tone shifted, carrying a hint of amusement. Though I never expected your nation to place such great importance on our friendly visit, dispatching such a grand welcoming party. Minister of Military Affairs Norton's face stiffened as he retorted, you intruded into our territory without notification. Our troop deployment is nearly legitimate defense. Legitimate defense. Tang Xiao snapped his fingers crisply. It seems my arrival was indeed too presumptuous. As his words faded, the clouds above the estate suddenly split apart. Two colossal silhouettes broke through the clouds and hovered into view, their silver-gray hulls like floating mountain ranges, the sky carriers Sky Dome 1 and Sky Dome 2. From their decks, combat robots Iron Guards swarmed out like a hive of bees. Moments later, several tank-sized hexapod robots landed with heavy strides, their cannons slowly rising. Even more chillingly, over a dozen Phantom Shadow fighters hovered silently above everyone, their quantum stealth coatings flickering in and out of visibility as if they could meld into the air at any moment. The guards on the lawn turned pale with terror. Norton's pupils contracted sharply. In his decades of military service, he had never witnessed such advanced weaponry. The anti-gravity propulsion technology of the sky carriers, the stealth hovering capability of the fighters, the agile mobility of the hexapod robots each surpassed the highest military standards of the Karelia Empire. Tang Xiao's voice came through the armor, carrying a faint pressure. Your nation's air defense system seems utterly oblivious to our 1/10 of our forces. In truth, Tang Xiao's claim was half-truth. To establish his might, he had brought nearly the majority of his elite forces, yet deliberately referred to it as 1/10. Watching the shocked expressions of Carl and Norton, he knew his intimidation had achieved its purpose. Seizing the moment, he pressed on. King Carl, the Stellar Empire has always adhered to the principle those who are not friends are enemies. Do you wish to be our friend or our enemy? King Carl's fingers repeatedly rubbed the top of his scepter. He raised his eyes to the sky carrier suspended in midair, then glanced at the flashing cannon muzzle of the hexapod robot by his feet. His Adam's apple moved involuntarily. As a sovereign, he understood better than anyone the wisdom of a wise man submits to circumstances. The military might of this stellar empire had already surpassed the existing framework of Blue Star's landscape. A heathen clash would only drag his entire nation into the quagmire of war. And that map of oil and mineral deposits lay like a heavy lure, tempting him to make the most rational choice. After a moment, the gravity on Carl's face slowly dissipated. He bowed slightly toward the White Emperor battle armor, his tone laced with just the right measure of apology. Since the northern domain is the territory of the Stellar Empire, our earlier expedition was indeed an intrusion. I should have personally come to apologize, yet instead I have troubled the Lord to grace us with his presence. How remiss of me. He paused, his voice clear and solemn. The Karelia Empire is willing to recognize the legitimate sovereignty of the Stellar Empire. Effective immediately, withdraw all survey teams from the northern domain and pledge not to cross the border again. We hope to establish friendly relations with your nation and share this sincerity. Norton fidgeted, eager to interject, but was silenced by Carl's glare. Hearing this inside the armor, Tang Xiao's lips curled into a barely noticeable smile. This was precisely the outcome he wanted. Your Majesty is a wise man. The mechanical arm of the White Emperor battle armor extended once more and the holographic document reappeared before Carl. Consider this map a gift for the establishment of diplomatic relations between our two nations. As for the next step, I hope your country will issue a declaration to the entire world. As his words fell, Tang Xiao moved his mind, and the hexapod robots, Phantom Shadow fighters and combat robots instantly returned to the decks of the sky carriers. Then, including himself, the entire Steel Legion rose into the air, converging above the estate into a metallic torrent. The next second, a faint blue spatial ripple rippled around them. The entire contingent, along with the sky carriers, vanished completely from the horizon with the fluctuation of a spatial jump. King Carl stared at the empty sky, letting out a long sigh of relief. Cold sweat had already soaked through his ceremonial robe. He turned to Ronald and ordered in a low voice, draft a statement immediately. Our nation will fully withdraw all survey projects in the northern domain, formally recognize the sovereignty of the Stellar Empire, and establish diplomatic relations. Yes, Your Majesty. Though still shaken, Ronald could barely conceal his astonishment. When the Karelia Empire's statement was broadcast through the global communication network, the entire Blue Star erupted in an uproar. At the conference table of the Oran Federation, the Minister of Defense slammed the freshly printed statement onto the table, his face full of disbelief.
The Stellar Empire. The Northern Domain. Has Karelia gone mad?
Abandoning their scientific rights in the Northern Domain for some suddenly emerging power. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Mingqi nation convened an emergency meeting.
Projectors repeatedly played blurry footage of the scene at the Karelia estate, secretly recorded by a spy there. Every attendee wore a grave expression. Sky carriers, stealth fighters, hexapod robots. Just what is this stellar empire?
The high-ranking officials of the Longwa nation were more cautious, staring at the word Stellar Empire on the screen. Someone murmured, the Northern Domain. Should we temporarily evacuate our research station?
This newly emerged force needs thorough investigation.
Back at the Stellar Empire base, Tang Xiao looked at the light screen displaying the Karelia Empire statement, a smile brimming on his lips.
The first step is done. Next it's time for my own country, Longwa.
Inside the Longwa research station in the Northern Domain, the heater filled the cramped space with a faint aroma of coffee. Zheng Hai rubbed his reddened hands and remarked to Zhao Zhao, who was sorting data, isn't it strange?
Karelia just up and left, and then this stellar empire pops up.
We've been here for 5 years, and besides us we haven't seen a single soul. Zhao Zhao adjusted his glasses, the screen still displaying the Karelia statement page.
The whole world is guessing the empire's origin.
The Oran Federation satellites have practically scoured the Northern Domain bare, and they still can't find a trace of them. As his words faded, a sudden knock 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 sounded at the door.
The research station fell silent in an instant.
Zheng Hai and Zhao Zhao exchanged a glance. In this godforsaken place, aside from their small team, even polar bears were rare. Who could possibly be knocking at the door? Zheng Hai quietly grabbed the pistol from under the table, signaling the others to stay alert, then slowly pulled the door open. The sight outside froze him in place. Silver mechanical infantry and mechanical dogs had silently filled the snowy ground, their electronic eyes glowing red, an endless sea stretching beyond sight. At the very front stood a crimson battle armor blazing like a flame, the patterns on its shoulder plates seemingly alight. The Lord of the Starforge Empire wishes to meet with the chairman of Lanshuan.
Please convey this immediately.
Infernal Prison's voice was deep, carrying the unique texture of machinery, yet it was unusually calm.
Everyone inside was stunned.
The pen in Zhao Zhao's hand clattered to the floor. A robot speaking wasn't surprising, but this scale of spectacle felt like a sci-fi movie coming to life. Seeing Zheng Hai frozen without response, Infernal Prison's voice amplified several times, making the windowpanes buzz. The Lord of the Starforge Empire wishes to meet with the chairman of Lanshuan.
Please convey this immediately. Only then did Zheng Hai snap back to reality.
Fumbling with trembling fingers for the encrypted communicator, he stammered, connecting.
I'll report right away.
As he gazed at the crimson armor in the snow, his heart pounded wildly.
This Starforge Empire was indeed even more terrifying than the rumors suggested. The next day, off the coast of Lanshuan, 3 carrier battle groups formed a triangle formation.
Over 30 warships prowled like steel Leviathan submarines, lurked silently beneath the surface, and the air between sea and sky was thick with tension. On the deck, an adjutant handed a thermos to Chairman Wang. Chairman, as per the agreed time, this is the meeting location. The military commander strode forward, his voice low and forceful. Coastal cruise missiles and war-wind ballistic missiles are on standby. The air defense network within a 500-kilometer radius is fully activated.
This is less than 300 kilometers from our homeland.
If they make a move, we can establish fire coverage within 3 minutes. Chairman Wang gazed at the endless sea, nodding slightly. No need to be overly tense.
We chose this location.
If they dare to come, they're either supremely confident or genuinely sincere. He turned to the radar monitoring officer. Any anomalous targets approaching? The officer shook his head, reporting, Chairman. Apart from our fleet, radar has detected no aerial, surface, or underwater targets. As the words faded, a faint hum suddenly came from the horizon. Everyone looked up to see a colossal object break through the clouds without warning, hovering above the fleet. It was a silver-gray space carrier, its hull far longer than any existing carrier, radiating a faint energy halo, casting a sky-obscuring shadow over the warships below.
Enemy attack. Soldiers on the deck instantly went on alert. Gunboats swiveled their turrets skyward and alarms blared sharply.
At that moment, a clear mechanical voice came from the space carrier. The Lord of the Starforge Empire has arrived for the meeting at Lanshuan's invitation. With the voice, dozens of Iron Guard combat robots flew from the carrier's deck, forming neat ranks in the sky like a flock of geese. At the center of the formation, a pristine white battle armor descended slowly, its feet touching the carrier deck, stirring a faint ripple of air. It was Tang Xiao's white Emperor armor.
Tang Xiao stepped forward and extended the right hand of his armor.
The guard beside Chairman Wang instinctively moved forward to intervene, but the chairman sharply ordered, stand back.
The Lord of the Starforge Empire shows sincerity.
What kind of behavior is this?
The guard retreated.
Chairman Wang straightened his collar, extended his hand, and gently clasped the metallic palm of the white Emperor armor.
Chairman Wang, I've long admired you.
Tang Xiao's voice came through the armor warm and gentle. I've come today hoping to formally establish diplomatic relations with Lanchuan. He raised a hand and a holographic screen unfurled between them, clearly marking the untapped oil fields, rare earth veins and various mineral deposits within Lanchuan's borders. As a token of sincerity, please accept this resource map. Chairman Wang looked at the detailed data on the screen, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. These buried resources were not even fully charted by Lanchuan's own survey teams, yet the Starforge Empire knew them intimately. He understood this was both a gesture of goodwill and a subtle display of power. Coupled with the sudden appearance of the space carrier and the combat robots in the sky, the Starforge Empire was indeed formidable. He smiled warmly, his tone sincere. The Lord's sincerity is well received. Lanchuan has always respected the sovereignty of all nations and is glad to establish friendly relations with an emerging power like the Starforge Empire. Then his gaze fell on Tang Xiao's white emperor armor and he spoke gently. Lord, since we're meeting, why not step out of the armor and show your true face?
That would demonstrate even greater sincerity. Tang Xiao was prepared.
His mechanical voice remained steady. Chairman Wang may not know, but it is a tradition of the Starforge Empire.
Battle armor is like a second skin to us. Removing armor is like resigning from office. Not removing it before outsiders protects the Empire's dignity. I hope you understand.
Chairman Wang made no comment, shifting the topic. I've heard that over the past year a mysterious Steel Legion attacked many nations' military bases and mines. Outsiders speculated was the Starforge Empire.
Now that you've emerged suddenly, aren't you afraid those nations will retaliate together?
Tang Xiao's armor paused as if surprised by the direct question, then his tone turned cold. The world order is built on a consensus of 4 major powers. Now that Karelia has established diplomatic ties with us and your nation has never been our enemy, forming relations is only natural.
As for the Oran Federation and Minchi Kingdom,
he pointed toward the distant space carrier, I will visit them personally and demand their withdrawal from the northern domain. Those who know the times are wise. If they refuse, then they'll have to reason with force. A glint of deep thought flickered in Chairman Wang's eyes as he asked with interest, Lord, are you so confident in waging war against 2 powerful nations simultaneously?
Of course.
Tang Xiao's voice carried unwavering certainty. The White Emperor armor looked toward the hovering space carrier. Chairman Wang, what you've seen is merely the tip of our military iceberg.
The technological level of the Oran Federation and Minchi Kingdom lags behind ours by more than an era.
If war breaks out, they have no chance of victory. Chairman Wang gazed at the metallic sheen of the space carrier under the sun, then at the neatly arrayed Iron Guard robots in the sky. After a moment of silence, he nodded slowly. The power of the Starforge Empire is indeed astonishing. He knew in his heart that Tang Xiao's words were no empty boast. The ability to force Karelia to withdraw from the northern domain and to silently materialize a space carrier above the fleet was enough to make any nation think twice. At this moment, on the deck of the aircraft carrier of the Lanchuan nation, Tang Xiao's voice came through the mech, carrying a hint of seriousness. I know that for many years the Lanchuan nation has been constrained by the joint pressure from the Orlan Federation and the Karelia Empire, facing many obstacles in international affairs. I can guarantee here that as long as the 2 countries establish diplomatic relations, should the Lanchuan nation face an attack from external enemies in the future, the Zhuxing Empire will certainly lend a helping hand without any second thoughts. Chairman Wang was taken aback by these words. He did not expect Tang Xiao to suddenly throw out such a promise. Meeting for the first time, he was already offering resource maps and promising military aid, which felt too eager and made Wang's heart weigh with cautious consideration. Lord Chairman Wang smiled, his tone carrying an exploratory note. Today is our first meeting, and the Zhuxing Empire treats the Lanchuan nation with such generosity, offering gifts and promises of aid. It makes me curious as to why you give us such special consideration. Realizing that he had indeed been too hasty, Tang Xiao adjusted his tone, his mechanical voice slowing down a bit. I was too blunt. Chairman Wang need not mind. Establishing diplomatic relations is inherently a gradual process. He paused and added, today we shall set the tone for diplomatic relations, and as we interact over time, the sincerity of the Zhuxing Empire will naturally become evident to you. As for other matters, we need not rush, we can take our time.
The Bai-D armor nodded slightly, its posture becoming much more relaxed. Chairman Wang looked at him, his underlying doubts lessening.
It seemed that while this lord had sharp edges, he also understood how to gauge the situation, not being a reckless individual.
He nodded. Very well.
We can first establish diplomatic relations and we can negotiate subsequent matters at a slower pace. Hours later, the Bai-D armor slowly ascended into the air under the protection of the Iron Guard war robots, landing steadily back on the deck of the aircraft carrier. With a faint blue ripple of space, the entire fleet vanished from the sight of the Lanchuan nation's carrier group. On the carrier deck, Chairman Wang gazed at the empty sky and solemnly ordered his aide beside him draft a statement indicating that the Lanchuan nation respects the sovereignty of the Zhuxing Empire and effective immediately withdraws all scientific personnel and equipment from the northern region, formally establishing diplomatic relations with the Zhuxing Empire.
Yes. The aide immediately responded.
When the statement from the Lanchuan nation was released, the already tumultuous international community due to the Karelia incident was once again stirred up.
Even the Lan Xuan nation has acknowledged it. What is the background of this Xu Xing Empire? At the meeting of the Orlan Federation, the Minister of Defense slammed the table, his face grim. The higher-ups of the Ming-Chi nation gathered urgently, looking at two statements that were almost identical, their expressions grave. It would be one thing if Karelia acknowledged it, but the Lan Xuan nation has always been cautious, and yet they were so decisive. The waters of the northern region are deeper than we thought. Those small countries with small scientific research stations in the northern region were even more frightened and acted overnight. Karelia and the Lan Xuan nation have both withdrawn. What are we waiting for? Hurry up and pack your things, don't wait for them to come visit us. In just a few days, the two top powers of Blue Star had withdrawn from the northern region, one after another, acknowledging the sovereignty of the Xu Xing Empire, letting the name Xu Xing Empire resonate globally. At this moment, Tang Xiao was in the storage room of the Xu Xing Empire's base, flipping through books, slowly closing one as he pondered inwardly. With the two powerful nations establishing diplomatic relations with him, he need not fear any intentions from Ming-Chi nation or the Orlan Federation. His fingertips lightly tapped on the table. Tang Xiao's gaze turned cold as he softly said, "However, the best strategy is to act cautiously. It's always better to be prudent." As the words fell, a faint blue ripple of space emanated around him. In the next moment, he found himself standing in the living room of a standalone villa in the center of Lanzhou, with the view outside the floor-to-ceiling windows reflecting Lanzhou University. He bent down to place a circular base of the spatial transmission device on the entrance cabinet. This villa was acquired through the sale of geophysical data and rare minerals in the dark web accumulated through a series of transactions. He recalled the encrypted messages, anonymous account transfers, and international node disguises from when Yu originally traded on the dark web. Each aspect of which he did not understand. He couldn't help but admire these class intelligent armors. Tang Xiao interrupted his thoughts. He opened an encrypted channel and asked of class intelligent reconnaissance Mech Luing, have there been any updates on the materials from the dark web? Half a second later, a clear electronic synthesized voice rang out, carrying the precision unique to class reconnaissance robots, reporting to the Lord, there has been no response regarding the rare golden entropy and meteorite fragments. There is a seller inquiring about the mining crystals, but the quoted price exceeds the market rate. Tang Xiao paused, his fingertips on the armrest of the sofa. Is this a price gouge or a deliberate test? He remained silent for a moment before responding, you handle it as you see fit, but remember, leave no traces behind. Understood, my lord. Luing responded respectfully but briefly. After the communication was cut off, the living room returned to silence. Tang Xiao, now alone in the large living room, couldn't help but think of his parents. Now he sends home exactly 10,000 a month, telling his parents over the phone, I've encountered a good boss earning from repairing things. He intended to send more but was afraid of inciting envy from others in the village. Human hearts cannot withstand flames that are too high. Tang Xiao leaned back, sinking into the soft sofa, finally relaxing his taut nerves. The materials from the third-level base, the dark web, and the movements of the two great powers were all progressing according to plan. Although it was slow, it had to be steady. The next morning, Tang Xiao woke up from the sofa, tidying his things in preparation to go to school. As he stepped out of the villa area, students out for morning runs and buying breakfast were gathering in twos and threes, their conversations revolving almost entirely around the Xu Xing Empire. Have you guys seen the news? The Xu Xing Empire in the northern region, they say even satellites can't capture its exact location. Some speculate it's an ancient cultivator's heavenly net formation. A boy with glasses raised his soy milk cup, speaking animatedly. Beside him, a girl with a ponytail scoffed, what cultivators? My cousin works in the space agency. He says that's probably a weather weapon used for hiding locations, clearly warning all nations that their technology is not something ordinary countries can compare with. Yet there was an anonymous video yesterday claiming that people from the Xu Xing Empire can fly faster than fighter jets. Another boy chimed in, my grandma says this is the manifestation of immortal beings. Are we about to enter the era of cultivation? The girl with the ponytail rolled her eyes and said, you've been watching too many fake videos. My brother says those are just human-shaped mechas. The buzz of discussion floated into Tang Xiao's ears, raising his eyebrows in surprise. He hadn't expected his empire to be linked to ancient cultivators. People really have vast imaginations. However, at that moment, Tang Xiao's gaze sharpened as he spotted Chen Li walking into the campus, inwardly thinking, I must investigate this person thoroughly later. Entering the lecture hall, the atmosphere instantly shifted from world affairs to holiday chit-chat. A girl in the front row sighed as she looked at her phone gallery. Had I known the Orlan Federation would close the borders, I wouldn't have gone there. I wasted my entire ticket. I'm worse off than you, a boy in the back row chimed in. I was supposed to go camping in the northwest Gobi, but I encountered a sandstorm and spent 3 days gnawing on compressed biscuits in my tent, coming back so dark my mom didn't recognize me. Time slipped by and a week had passed since the semester began. During a break, Tang Xiao scrolled through his phone when a push notification popped up. The Orlan Federation had released a statement suspecting that the Starforge Empire was behind the attack on their military base the previous year, demanding a reasonable explanation from the Empire. He gazed at the screen, a sharp glint flashing in his eyes. Seems they can't hold back any longer, he murmured, the corners of his lips curling into a faint smirk. On the land of the northern domain, only a handful of nations with ulterior motives now lingered.
To them the Starforge Empire was like a colossal beast shrouded in mist. They knew only of its mystery and sensed its power, yet no one could articulate the true extent of its might.
Some probed, others observed, each hoping to glean the Empire's true strength from this game of chess.
With a flicker of thought he activated an encrypted communication channel. Stargazer.
My lord, I am here. Stargazer's voice was steady, devoid of any emotion. Issue a statement.
Tang Xiao's voice was resolute.
Inform all nations in the northern domain that they must withdraw within 5 days. Those who fail to do so will be considered as declaring war on the Starforge Empire.
He paused briefly before adding, also make it clear in the statement, the northern domain has always been the ancestral home of the Starforge Empire, merely unnoticed by other nations until now. Today some countries dub this place the United Nations Survey Zone, which is utterly laughable. Use the same wording we gave the Karelia Empire and let them see who the true master of this land is. As you command, my lord. Stargazer acknowledged and the communication channel closed. Tang Xiao walked to the window, watching the students on the playground, some roughhousing, some exercising, others lost in romance.
Moments later the Starforge Empire's statement exploded like a thunderbolt on the international stage.
In the mansions of world leaders, advisors pored over the sternly worded declaration. An empire had always existed in the northern domain. Yet previous cross-regional surveys had found no trace of civilization, not even significant life signals.
The claim of generations of habitation was utterly implausible.
Inside the Prime Minister's office of the Ida Kingdom, Prime Minister Harry stared at the Starforge Empire statement on the screen. Just as he was about to order the withdrawal of the survey team stationed in the northern domain, his encrypted communicator lit up. It was a private channel from Ryan, the leader of the Oran Federation.
Prime Minister Harry Ryan's voice carried its usual smoothness.
Don't rush into a decision on the northern domain.
Harry frowned. Mr.
Ryan, the Starforge Empire is taking a hard stance. There's no need for us to wade into this mess. Foolish, Ryan chuckled lightly. The more mysterious they are, the more it suggests they're hiding something. If you withdraw now, you'll miss the chance to uncover their true hand.
Hey Race, what you do, stay put.
If war breaks out, the Oran Federation will secretly supply you with weapons. Even if things go south, Mingchi, Karelia and I will mediate through the UN, ensuring the Starforge Empire agrees to a ceasefire. Harry sneered inwardly. This was nothing but using Ida as a sacrificial pawn.
Just as he was about to refuse, Ryan dangled a carrot.
Say yes and we'll immediately provide Ida with 10 billion in aid to overhaul your national railway network.
Additionally, we'll share basic data on some advanced weaponry. Ryan's voice turned seductive. All you need to do is test the waters. If you can't win, surrender, we'll have your back. Post-war reconstruction of Ida will be fully covered by the Oran Federation. Isn't that a deal too good to pass up? Harry fell silent.
10 billion in funds, railway upgrades and advanced weapon data, all things Ida desperately needed. He calculated if the Starforge Empire was truly formidable, he could back down and withdraw, still pocketing the aid. If they were a paper tiger, Ida could claim a share of the northern domain.
Fine, I agree, Harry said through gritted teeth.
After ending the call, he immediately convened an emergency meeting and issued a public announcement to prepare for potential geological disasters. The nation will immediately conduct a safe fortress emergency evacuation drill. All citizens must familiarize themselves with the routes to the nearest shelters within 72 hours. The announcement left the Ida populace mildly puzzled, but they dismissed it as a routine drill. No one knew that behind this exercise lay a gamble staking the nation's fate, and their prime minister was steering the entire country toward ruin. 2 days later, on the map of the northern domain, only Ida's research station remained like a stubborn nail, while all other nations had withdrawn. Tang Xiao mused to himself, even the four great powers chose to bide their time, yet a small nation dawdles. The signs of outside backing are unmistakable. He fixed his gaze on the coordinates of Ida's station on the holographic screen, tapping lightly on the console, a chill seeping into his eyes. It seems Ida is determined to take a beating, dead set on receiving this blow. At that moment a saying from a great mind surfaced in his thoughts: land one punch to stave off 100. This punch must be loud enough to make the forces lurking in the shadows fully grasp the weight of provoking us. Tang Xiao's voice deepened as he turned to Stargazer.
Transmit my orders.
Have the aerospace carrier deploy reconnaissance drones and scout clouds to infiltrate the airspace over all of Ida's military bases.
Remember, every vehicle, every tank, every aircraft must have at least one reconnaissance drone attached. Leave no gaps. Stargazer immediately responded, as you command, my lord.
On the morning of the fourth day, the Starforge Empire's second statement was transmitted via encrypted channels to the leadership of every nation, its tone even more biting. All forces within the northern domain that have not withdrawn will be deemed as having declared war on our empire. Inside Ida's prime ministerial office, Harry had just quashed the last dissenting voices in his cabinet. Clutching the communicator, he confirmed once more with Ryan the Oran Federation's weapon support and Minky's promises. There won't be any issues, right?
Rest assured, Prime Minister Harry Ryan's voice came through the airwaves, brimming with confidence.
The weapons are already en route and Mingqi has been briefed. Even if it comes to that, Corellia will step in to mediate. With the three of us backing you, even the Starforge Empire won't dare to disregard us. With repeated reassurances, Harry's lingering anxiety finally dissipated. He leaned back in his chair, gazing out at the morning mist over Ida, already envisioning a post-war nation racing toward prosperity with foreign aid. Inside the main control room of the second-tier base, the countdown on the holographic screen ticked away second by second, with only 5 hours remaining until the deadline.
Tang Xiao stared at Ida's territory on the screen, his gaze frigid. He whispered, even now they refuse to withdraw.
It's too late for regrets. Within the second-tier base, Tang Xiao, commanding the arrayed intelligent battle armors and mechanical troops, issued his orders. The 5 crucial military bases of the Ida nation are the primary targets. Once the countdown ends, immediately detonate the reconnaissance bees attached to their aircraft and tanks. Any stragglers will be locked onto and eliminated by the reconnaissance clouds. His fingertip traced over 5 blinking red dots on the holographic projection as he continued his deployment for these 5 vital bases. Dispatch 1 class intelligent battle armor as the leader, accompanied by 1000 mechanized soldiers and mechanical dogs plus 3 phantom shadow fighters for aerial support. Ensure total paralysis, leaving not a single soldier or piece of equipment. His gaze shifted to the 10 class intelligent battle armors standing rigidly to the side, his tone hardening. The remaining task falls to you 10. Each of you will lead 100 Iron Guard combat robots and 10 six-legged spider robots to sweep the remaining military outposts, ensuring they possess no further capacity for resistance.
Furthermore, keep 1 aerial carrier stationed at the base.
Immediately elevate the second-tier base to its highest defense status. No one is permitted entry or exit without authorization. Finally, he surveyed the assembly, his voice resolute. The rest of the forces will accompany me to the capital of the Ida nation.
Remember, completely encircle the entire city and enforce the highest level of martial law.
I want it so that not even a single fly can get in or out. As you command, Lord. The dozen or so class intelligent battle armors responded in unison, their metallic voices echoing within the command center, carrying an undeniable aura of grim resolve. On a Saturday in the capital of the Ida nation, sunlight bathed the streets. The market was a cacophony of life, the cries of vendors, the laughter of children, and the whispers of couples interweaving into a tapestry of vibrant human activity.
Young women in brightly colored dresses carrying shopping bags paused to browse in front of shops.
No one paid attention to the news scrolling on the large corner screens, nor did anyone imagine that a storm was about to break. They all believed their nation had long since withdrawn from the northern domain, assuming peaceful days stretched endlessly ahead. Tick-tock, the moment the countdown reached 0, the sky itself seemed to tear open. A sky-obscuring aerial carrier tore through the clouds, its shadow instantly enveloping the capital, coming to a halt directly above the Prime Minister's official residence. On the ground, as the capital's garrison troops moved to sound the alarm, 6-legged spider robots ejected from the aerial carrier. They landed swiftly, their metallic limbs scraping against the ground with a harsh screech, and laser beams instantly severed the communication lines. The turrets on the aerial carrier's underbelly rotated slowly. A scorching laser beam shot down, instantly detonating a row of tanks in the military camp outside the city, sending a pillar of fire roaring into the sky. The populace stood stunned, believing it to be a special effects film shoot, until a frigid electronic voice echoed from the aerial carrier across the entire city. For the Ida nation's failure to withdraw from our territory despite repeated warnings, we now enact your nation's annihilation.
The word annihilation struck like a thunderclap.
The market fell into dead silence, then erupted into terrified screams. People scattered in panic, fruit rolling across the ground, shopping bags trampled underfoot. The earlier joy and laughter were gone, replaced only by despairing cries. Inside the Prime Minister's residence, Harry shot up from his chair, his trembling hand grabbing an encrypted phone, only to hear a busy signal. He frantically dialed the military district's number, but the earpiece offered only the cold response, unable to connect. At nearly the same moment, every military base within the Ida nation, including deeply buried secret strongholds, was plunged into hell.
The reconnaissance bees attached to tanks, infantry, fighting vehicles, and warplanes detonated simultaneously.
Metal wreckage mixed with flames erupted skyward. Before surviving soldiers could react, a tide of mechanized soldiers and mechanical dogs had already breached the defensive fortifications. The hum of gunfire and the screech of metallic claws tearing through armor intermingled. Resistance in the face of such absolute power was as fragile as paper. Harry slumped to the floor, staring out the window at the suspended behemoth. Tang Xiao, clad in the white emperor battle armor, leaped from the deck of the aerial carrier. The silver-white armor gleamed with a cold luster in the sunlight, making him appear like a god of war. 2 pitch-black class battle armors followed closely behind, forming a triangular escort formation as they flew straight towards the Prime Minister's residence. The guards outside the residence, seeing this, instantly raised their guns and fired into the air. The bullets, dense as raindrops, ricocheted off the energy shields enveloping the battle armors, leaving only insignificant sparks that were utterly harmless to the suits. In that instant, the 2 black battle armors transformed the armor on their arms, revealing built-in rapid-fire weapons. Like 2 mobile machine guns, they unleashed a hail of gleaming bullets.
The guards didn't even have time to adjust their stance before they fell under the precise hail of fire.
The gunfire ceased abruptly and the area before the residents fell into an instant profound silence. Tang Xiao hovered in midair, his gaze penetrating the battle armor's visor fixed upon the building that symbolized the core of Ida's power. His tone was flat but carried an undeniable weight of authority. Prime Minister Harry, please come out. Harry slumped in his prime ministerial chair, his fingers clutching the communicator so tightly his knuckles were white. The unable to connect message on the screen stung his eyes.
Impossible. It's only been half an hour, he murmured.
The cabinet ministers around him were ashen-faced, some paced frantically while others collapsed onto sofas, their eyes vacant. Even the nearest military base outside the capital had lost contact.
Everyone present understood the grim implication.
At that moment Harry looked up sharply.
The office's floor-to-ceiling window shattered with a deafening crash.
A streak of white light carrying a fierce gust of wind swept inside. The shockwave from its landing sent documents flying off the coffee table. The visor of Tang Xiao's battle armor glowed red, locking onto him. Behind him the two pitch-black class battle armors landed simultaneously, their mechanical arms primed and ready, cold gun barrels aimed at everyone present.
Starforge Empire.
Harry stammered, his teeth chattering. He tried to stand from his chair but his legs felt like noodles.
We can negotiate.
Tang Xiao had no interest in listening to his pleas. The White Emperor armor's arm lifted slightly. Negotiate.
The moment you chose to stay, you forfeited that right.
As his words fell, a laser shot from Tang Xiao's fingertip. Harry didn't even have time to scream before he collapsed in a pool of blood. Tang Xiao withdrew his hand. He understood Harry had to die. It was a warning to all who harbored delusions of luck. Without establishing this dominance, more nations emboldened by backers would test their boundaries in the future, creating endless trouble. He swept his gaze over the trembling Ida high-ranking officials, his voice transmitting through the armor with a cold metallic edge. If you wish to preserve your nation's people, you will do one thing for me now: abolish the name of the Ida nation, draft a new national name, and elect a new prime minister.
I never want to hear the name Ida nation again in this world. The officials nodded frantically, all color drained from their faces.
The image of Harry's instantaneous execution was still fresh in their minds. No one dared the slightest defiance. Only then did they truly understand that the leader of the Starforge Empire was not only mysterious and powerful but also possessed a decisive ruthlessness like a thunderbolt. The grandiose promises painted by the Oran Federation crumbled into nothingness in the face of absolute power.
Tang Xiao did not spare them another glance. He turned and, followed by the class battle armors, swept out the window, leaving the traumatized officials behind.
The shadow of the Steel Army finally faded from the skies above the former capital of Ida. Inside the Prime Minister's mansion, the surviving officials dared to breathe deeply, their backs already soaked with cold sweat.
Madness.
We should never have listened to the lies of the Orlan Federation. Someone collapsed onto the ground, his voice filled with lingering fear.
How could we, the Starforge Empire, be someone we could provoke? It's like poking a hornet's nest.
Vice Prime Minister Shadi struggled to his feet, pale but still composed.
Talking about this now is useless.
The priority is to issue a statement, formally apologize to the Starforge Empire, and immediately begin changing the national name and electing a new prime minister.
We must show that man our sincerity. The crowd echoed in agreement, no one daring to object.
Just then the communicator suddenly rang, the name Lion jumping on the screen.
The officials fell silent instantly, their eyes burning with rage.
Were it not for this mediator from the Orlan Federation stirring up trouble, how could the country have fallen to such a state?
Shadi took a deep breath, pressed the answer button, and spoke coldly. Chief Lion. Vice Prime Minister Shadi.
Where is Prime Minister Harry? Lion was clearly unaware of the changes here, then said with a smile, tell him to hold on.
The weapons we're aiding will arrive in 12 hours, and by then. Chief Lion Shadi interrupted him, suppressing the fury in his chest.
He knew that neither the Orlan Federation nor the Starforge Empire could be provoked at this moment, so he spoke in the calmest tone possible. There is no Ida anymore.
We have surrendered.
Lion on the other end froze instantly, his voice filled with shock. What did you say?
Surrender. How could it be? Shadi didn't explain further, directly hanging up the communication and tossing the communicator onto the table.
The sunlight outside the window shone back into the mansion, but it couldn't dispel the heaviness in the air. This nation, after all, paid a painful price for its momentary greed and luck. After Shadi hung up, the mansion was dead silent, only the ticking of the wall clock. A white-haired old minister spoke tremblingly. Vice Prime Minister, what should the new national name be? Shadi walked to the window, looking at the citizens on the street who were gradually returning to order but still appeared fearful, and said in a deep voice, call it Fatu. May we see the direction from this disaster and never again court disaster. The crowd nodded in silence. Meanwhile, in the distant Orlan Federation, Lion gripped the disconnected communicator, unable to come to his senses for a long time.
Surrender. He slammed the table, his face turning pale. Only half a day. Is Ida finished just like that?
The aide beside him cautiously handed over a newly received secret report accompanied by several satellite-intercepted images, the shadow of an aerial carrier, the explosion of military bases, and those death-like battle armors.
Lion looked at the images, his fingers trembling slightly. He had thought that even if the Starforge Empire were strong it would take some effort to take down Ida, but he never expected it to be an overwhelming annihilation. Immediately destroy all communication records related to Ida. He suddenly ordered sharply to the outside world, just say, "We only considered aid out of humanitarianism and haven't actually acted." The aides hurriedly agreed, no one daring to mention the batch of weapons still on the way. Soon a sincerely worded apology statement from the Fatu nation along with the announcement of the national name change was released through the only remaining official channels, emphasizing their regret toward the Starforge Empire and remorse for past decisions. This apology statement caused a massive uproar in the international community. Dismantling a sovereign nation in less than half a day, the power displayed by the Starforge Empire made all countries gasp in awe. Those small nations that were still on the sidelines began drafting goodwill letters planning how to align themselves with the Starforge Empire, while some old powers held emergency meetings to repeatedly simulate scenarios, unanimously concluding in the short term they must not confront the Starforge Empire head-on, avoiding it if possible. Tang Xiao looked at the holographic screen displaying the sincerely worded apology statement from Fatu, a faint smile curling at the corner of his mouth. This statement reflected both fear and attitude. It wasn't in vain. He turned to Guan Xing beside him and said, "Draft a statement and send it out. Say that the Starforge Empire has always been willing to coexist peacefully with all nations and has no intention of expansion." After a pause he added, "Also tell the nations that our country urgently needs mineral crystals, rare golden entropy, and meteorite fragments. If any nation can help find these 3 items, the Starforge Empire will offer generous gifts in return." After speaking he leaned back into his seat, his fingertips lightly tapping the armrest. Previously being too tough inevitably made nations wary. Now with a surface of peace and then offering lures, he could both acquire the needed materials and see which nations were willing to show goodwill. It would be much more efficient than before. This way it becomes much easier, Tang Xiao muttered to himself. Within just 3 days of the Starforge Empire's statement, international reactions erupted instantly. Those small nations trembling in fear after the fall of Fatu actively searched for materials to ingratiate themselves with the Starforge Empire, even sending exploration teams into undeveloped areas. Meanwhile, old powers like the Mingqi Kingdom, the Orlan Federation, and the Karelia Empire were cautious, responding on the surface that they would keep an eye out but secretly investigating the uses of these materials, suspecting the Starforge Empire of secretly developing powerful weapons and even trying to intercept materials found by small nations. Tang Xiao leaned against the main console looking at the intelligence from various nations relayed by Luing, his fingertips brushing past carelessly. Seeing the words "nations secretly researching mineral crystal composition" on the screen, a faint smile flickered in his eyes. "Even if they get their hands on it, what can they do?" he said to Yan Yu beside him. "It's like placing a complete rocket in front of people from the Stone Age. They might marvel at the metal's luster, but they'll never guess it can break through the atmosphere. The more they struggle, the more they'll realize that these things are far less practical for them than exchanging them for the generous gifts of the Starforge Empire." Tang Xiao tapped his fingers on the screen, pulling up a new directive. "Have Guan Xing add another statement. If any nation is willing to sell the materials they've discovered, our side is willing to purchase them at a high price. Rather than letting those great powers hold on to useless things and guess wildly, it was better to give them a clear path. After all, to those who didn't understand their use, these were hot potatoes, but to him they were the key to building a third-level base." This deal was a win-win no matter how you looked at it, while also testing the attitudes of various nations, a move that achieved multiple goals at once. Tang Xiao shifted the topic, his fingertip tapping on the holographic screen toward the coordinates of Fatu country. "How are things in Fatu country?" Yan Yu immediately pulled up the relevant data, its electronic voice reporting steadily. "Its military facilities are now completely paralyzed and a provisional government is currently organizing reconstruction. But according to intelligence relayed by reconnaissance drones, several neighboring countries have already increased their troops along the borders. Openly and covertly they are eyeing Fatu country's territory, clearly intending to carve it up." Tang Xiao listened and said in a deep voice, "Just as I expected. The law of this world has always been survival of the fittest, the classic game of kicking someone when they're down." He tapped lightly on the screen. "Tell the new Prime Minister of Fatu country that if they are willing to become a vassal state of the Stellar Empire, I can guarantee their territorial integrity. As for the terms, the mining rights within their borders will belong to us." Tang Xiao had long harbored this plan but insisted on having a justifiable pretext. Now it seemed the timing was perfect. Yan Yu responded, "Understood, Lord." Tang Xiao gazed at the scarred land of Fatu country on the screen, his eyes devoid of superfluous emotion. Compassion had never earned respect. Only by aligning with a stronger power could they preserve that meager space for survival. Tang Xiao wondered when he had grown so cold, but he knew a clear mind must never waver. It was the foundation for standing firm in a complex situation. A few days passed at Lan State University. Tang Xiao looked out the window, the classroom's clamor abruptly pulling him back to reality. Quick, check the news.
Fatu country just issued a statement saying they will become a vassal state of the Stellar Empire. A student in the front row exclaimed, phone in hand, and the classroom erupted into chaos.
Is the Stellar Empire expanding? Fatu country has no choice.
After being crippled, they'll be carved up without a backer. The murmurs buzzed, but Tang Xiao only lowered his eyes and flipped through his textbook as if he had foreseen this all along. Just then a cold mechanical prompt sounded in his mind: host has conquered a nation. Awarded 5000 command points.
Current remaining command points 13200.
Tang Xiao's hand holding the pen paused slightly, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. He hadn't expected conquering a country to yield so many command points. It seemed his future plans needed adjustment.
After class at noon, the cafeteria was bustling.
As Tang Xiao found a seat with his tray, Zhang Chaos' hearty voice came from behind Tang Xiao.
Over here.
Turning around, he saw Zhang Qiao waving a familiar smile on his face.
During the last camping trip, Tang Xiao had saved them by telling them to flee first, which earned Zhang Chaos heartfelt admiration. He insisted on eating with Tang Xiao, claiming he had to make up for the missed gratitude.
Tang Xiao couldn't refuse, so he sat down with his tray. Shortly after, Su Shiwei and Lin Yu approached with their trays. Seeing Tang Xiao, Su Ziwei's eyes lit up. You're here too. Her tone carried a hint of reproach. I've invited you several times, but you've always been busy.
What have you been up to lately?
I've been busy repairing things. Tang Xiao replied simply. Suddenly Zhang Qiao leaned in and whispered, hey, what do you think the Stellar Empire really is?
Fatu country just submitted to them like that. It's like a galactic overlord from a novel.
Tang Xiao took a bite of his rice and said casually, who knows?
Maybe it's some hidden technological superpower.
But it's too mysterious. Wan Hao, scrolling through a forum on his phone, chimed in. Look at this post. It says the Stellar Empire's armor can withstand missiles and they have space carriers.
Their tech level must be leagues ahead of ours. Lin Yu then pulled out an ancient-looking book and opened it gently. Did you know?
Ancient records mention a starfall legend in the northern domain 300 years ago describing a huge luminous object crashing there.
Could it be related to the Stellar Empire?
She pointed at a passage on the page, her eyes sparkling. I don't think they appeared out of nowhere.
Maybe, as their statement said, they've been living there all along.
Tang Xiao listened to their lively chatter and found it somewhat amusing. Here he was, the lord of the Stellar Empire, sitting among them, pretending to share their curiosity and bewilderment about these matters, a rather peculiar sensation. Su Shiwei noticed his silence and nudged him with her elbow. What do you think? I feel the Stellar Empire is a bit mysterious, hard to fathom.
Tang Xiao swallowed the food in his mouth and said calmly, whatever it is for us, just living well in the present is enough.
In his mind, however, he thought once the Tier 3 base is built, you'll find it even more unfathomable.
This empire is indeed mysterious.
Everyone turned to see Chen Li standing by the table, tray in hand, with a composed expression. His features were delicate, but his eyes were unfathomably deep.
Tang Xiao's gaze lingered on him for half a second.
He had privately investigated Chen Li.
The record showed he was an orphan raised in the Sunshine Orphanage on the outskirts, with average grades, a solitary personality, and almost no social footprint.
But the cleaner the slate, the more suspicious Tang Xiao found it. Especially that night during the camping trip, when Chen Li had stopped them from entering the cave with a tone that suggested he knew a giant python was inside.
Chen Li, I'm curious, why are you always alone?
Lin Yu broke the silence, her tone laced with curiosity. Chen Li smiled faintly and sat down opposite Tang Xiao with a natural motion. I'm used to it, he said lightly, then turned to the others. That night I heard you encountered a python in the cave. At the mention of this, Wang Hao slapped his thigh. Exactly. I still get chills thinking about it. If only we had listened to you and not messed around going into that cave.
Tang Xiao looked up at Chen Li and asked calmly, that night you specifically told us not to go.
Did you already know there was a giant python in the cave? This question made Su Shiwei and the others turn to Chen Li. Chen Li was visibly startled, then took a sip of soup from his tray and said with a slow smile, how could I have known? I just thought it was too risky to go into a cave deep in the mountains at night. It was a casual warning. You were just unlucky to run into it. His expression was open, his tone natural, but Tang Xiao keenly sensed he was lying. He felt that this Chen Li, outwardly calm, harbored too many hidden secrets. The cafeteria's broadcast suddenly announced that the lunch break was about to end.
Chen Li stood up, picking up his tray, heading back to class.
As he turned, his gaze met Tang Xiao's. A faint glimmer seemed to flash in his deep eyes, so fleeting it could be mistaken for an illusion. But this time Tang Xiao distinctly felt his nanoskeleton stir noticeably after that brief exchange, more pronounced than the previous 2 times.
Cold sweat trickled down Tang Xiao's forehead.
He remained silent, watching Chen Li's retreating figure, his suspicions growing heavier. On the streets of Fatu, scaffolding of reconstruction propped up the city, gasping for breath amidst the flames of war. Beside the houses that had collapsed in the bombings, workers were mending the walls brick by brick. Prime Minister Perrin stood by the window gazing at the scene, his brows deeply furrowed. The three most abundant mineral veins within Fatu's territory had now been entirely handed over to the mechanical forces of the Stellar Empire for operation. The mined ores were uniformly loaded into containers stamped with the emblem of the Stellar Empire and shipped to the northern domain. Though Perrin received complaints from the populace, he could only forcefully suppress these voices. He had witnessed the iron fist of the Stellar Empire and was well aware of the neighboring countries posturing at the border.
As things stood, Fatu did not even have the qualification to bargain.
Reports piled high on the desk. Attacks on transport convoys in the southern border were becoming increasingly frequent, with trucks full of grain looted clean in no man's land. A sudden locust plague erupted in the western agricultural zone, devouring vast wheat fields, while the supplier of pesticides, the Western Desert Duchy, cut off supplies, citing insufficient production capacity. Perrin understood in his heart this was the neighboring countries testing the limits of the Stellar Empire. If the Empire turned a blind eye, they would surely encroach upon Fatu's territory step by step like hungry wolves. As a vassal state, he had long reported the urgent situation to the Stellar Empire, only to receive a single cold reply: understood.
Reporting to the Lord.
But the wait stretched on for an entire month. The exalted Lord high above never gave any response. This silence acted like a shot of adrenaline, emboldening the Nansha Kingdom and the Western Desert Duchy to grow increasingly audacious. They were likely convinced that the Stellar Empire only coveted Fatu's mineral veins, caring nothing for the country's survival or border stability. Just as Perrin was frowning over the mountain of reports, the encrypted communicator on his desk suddenly buzzed. The Stellar Empire's emblem flickered on the screen and his eyes narrowed. This was the Lord's private line. He hurriedly rose, bowed deeply to the holographic projection emitted by the communicator, and his voice carried an involuntary hint of timidity. Greetings, Lord. On the other end of the line, Tang Xiao, clad in the white emperor battle armor, the edges of his pauldrons gleaming faintly. I hear those two neighboring countries have been provoking you recently. His voice carried the distinct metallic resonance of the armor.
Perrin quickly nodded. Yes, Lord.
The Nansha Kingdom and the Western Desert Duchy have been repeatedly provoking us.
Fatu is truly unable to withstand them.
Tang Xiao chuckled inwardly, but his tone was low. Compile a clear list of everything they've done this month.
Send one copy to me and release the other to the public under your government's name.
Perrin was stunned, his face full of confusion. Lord, this. Why is this? There was a moment of silence on the communicator, then Tang Xiao's slightly cold voice came through. Just do as I say.
Make the announcement as severe as possible. That way we can declare war on them. Perrin was taken aback.
He had never imagined that this lord's ambition could be so straightforward and vast. Just a few probes from neighboring states had stirred in him the thought of direct conquest. Tang Xiao, however, was thinking of the 5000 command points the system would reward, but had been hindered by the lack of a just cause to initiate a war.
Fatu's declaration soon spread across nations.
Between the lines, it described the Nansha Kingdom's plundering and the Western Desert Duchy's supply cutoff as malicious provocations, deliberately undermining sovereignty and threatening the survival of the people. The wording was so severe that it seemed the two countries were already at the gates.
Within half a day of the declaration's release, the Stellar Empire's announcement followed closely. The tone was unyielding. Fatu is a vassal of our empire, its sovereignty is our sovereignty.
The Nansha and Western Desert states have repeatedly provoked, disregarding the majesty of our empire. This is intolerable. Effective immediately, war is declared on both states. Those few lines struck like a boulder crashing into a calm lake, instantly stirring up a storm in the international community. Public opinion across nations was in an uproar. War over such a trivial friction. How far-fetched. Anyone with clear eyes can see the Stellar Empire is using this as a pretext to expand. Amidst the surging waves of doubt and speculation, no one dared to step forward and speak for the Nansha Kingdom or the Western Desert Duchy. After all, no one wished to face the edge of the Stellar Empire's blade. And at the heart of the storm, in the high-level meeting rooms of the Nansha Kingdom and the Western Desert Duchy, chaos reigned.
Have they gone mad? Starting a war over something so trivial?
The head of the Nansha Kingdom slammed the table, his face ashen. The Prime Minister of the Western Desert Duchy clenched the declaration of war tightly. Our probes were indeed excessive, but who could have imagined they would dare to tear things apart so directly?
What do we do now?
The Nansha head paced back and forth in the meeting room, then suddenly stopped, his voice carrying a note of desperate urgency. Quick contact Lord Lion of the Oran Federation immediately.
Let them step in and mediate with the Stellar Empire.
He knew deep down that Nansha alone could never contend with the Stellar Empire. Their only hope lay in the backing behind them. These small states, surviving in the cracks between great powers, all had shadows of other nations behind them, whether through financial aid or military support, forming subtle webs of mutual interest.
Meanwhile, in the Oran Federation's main meeting room, the atmosphere was equally tense. The Stellar Empire is clearly using this as a pretext. An official slammed the table, his tone indignant. This conflict doesn't even come close to justifying war. Another person, brows furrowed, countered in a deep voice, but the facts they listed do exist. Most nations wouldn't lightly start a war unless absolutely necessary, but this Stellar Empire, it seems almost eager to fight. Let's stop dwelling on that now.
Someone cut in urgently. The key is what to do about the Nansha Kingdom and the Western Desert Duchy.
Do we just watch them be annihilated?
Then all the funds we've poured in will have been wasted. Lord Lion rubbed his throbbing temples, his expression grim, clearly at his wits' end.
After a moment of silence, he abruptly stood up. First, contact the Karelia Empire and the Lanchuan Kingdom.
They have diplomatic relations with the Stellar Empire. Perhaps they can step in to persuade them. His tone grew heavy. If we let the Stellar Empire continue this way, yesterday it was Fadu, today Nansha and the Western Desert, tomorrow who knows? In the end it will affect the entire world order. But even as they debated at that very moment in the northern domain base of the Stellar Empire, two colossal vessels were slowly rising, hurtling toward the airspace of those two nations. They were Tang Xiao's Sky Dome 1 and Sky Dome 2 aerospace carriers. In the meeting room of the Orlan Federation, the holographic projection of the presiding officer Ryan hovered in the center, facing the images of King of Lanchuan and King Karl of the Karelia Empire.
He spoke earnestly. Gentlemen, the Zhuxing Empire is serious this time.
If they truly managed to annex Nansha and Shima, the consequences would be unimaginable. I kindly ask you to intervene and persuade the lords of the Zhuxing Empire to leave some room for negotiation. The King of Lanchuan, seated beneath the national emblem, lightly tapped his fingers on the table. After a moment of contemplation, he shook his head. Ryan, it's not that we are unwilling to help. The diplomatic relationship between the Zhuxing Empire and our country is still in its infancy, and their foundations are not stable. To rashly interfere in their decisions at this time could backfire and negatively impact the relationship between our two nations.
He paused and continued, moreover, this matter does not directly concern our national interests.
It is truly not worth offending a powerful empire for the sake of others. King Karl of the Karelia Empire was even more straightforward, stroking his scepter. Ryan, the Zhuxing Empire currently harbors no malice towards us. We have no need to provoke them. The plight of Nansha and Shima stems from their own provocation. If the Zhuxing Empire takes action, it is merely a consequence of both sides.
If we forcibly intervene, wouldn't we be inviting enmity for no reason?
Ryan observed the resolute attitudes of the two men, his heart sinking little by little. He opened his mouth to say more, but noticed their images were already becoming blurry. Clearly they were no longer interested in continuing the discussion. As the holographic projection dissipated, only Ryan remained in the meeting room. He slumped back into his chair and sighed. It seems that Nansha and Shima are truly facing dire straits. While the three-party talks were ongoing far away in Nansha and Shima, a catastrophic disaster had already begun. The Sky Dome 1 aerospace aircraft carrier hovered over the capital of Nansha, casting a massive shadow over the city. With the command given, the hatches opened and countless battle robots from the Mechanical Legion, six-legged spider robots, mechanical infantry, mechanical dogs and swarms of drones descended like a tide, their weapon beams weaving across the city skyline. The defensive fortifications of Nansha crumbled under heavy fire like paper. The army responded hastily but had no chance to even approach the aircraft carrier, forced to retreat step by step under the advance of the Mechanical Legion. In the agricultural core of Shima, the shipborne cannons of the Sky Dome 2 aircraft carrier had already locked onto their target. After the first round of volleys, the warehouses and defensive positions originally used for stockpiling supplies were instantly engulfed in flames as ground forces coordinated with aerial strikes, entering a realm devoid of resistance.
In the face of absolute military force, Shima appeared utterly powerless.
Amidst the smoke of battle, the resistance of both nations was quickly shattered. Tang Xiao sat in the court chamber of the Zhuxing Empire's secondary base, watching the continuous battle reports on the holographic screen, his gaze calm and unperturbed. When the laser barrel of the class intelligent battle armor pressed against the temple of the Nansha leader and the shadow of the Sky Dome 2 completely enveloped the palace of Shima. The broadcast signals of the two aerospace carriers covered the capitals of Nansha and Shima. This is your last choice: either disappear from the map or, like the Fadu Kingdom, become a vassal state of the Zhuxing Empire. This statement struck like a heavy hammer, smashing down on the already tense nerves of both nations' leadership. The leader of Nansha gazed at the streets occupied by the Mechanical Legion outside the window.
The once proud defensive systems shattered like toys under the enemy's weaponry.
He finally understood that the Fadu Kingdom's swift surrender was not weakness but the only choice in the face of overwhelming power. Their tanks looked like tin boxes before the six-legged spider robots, and their aircraft had no chance to approach the aerospace carrier. This was not a war, it was a one-sided massacre. The king of Shima slumped in his throne, watching the images on the screen of buildings being consumed by flames. He recalled the powerful mechanical forces of the Zhuxing Empire and finally recognized the reality: the outcome of resistance could only be annihilation.
He trembled as he nodded. We are willing to become a vassal state.
Almost simultaneously, the leader of Nansha also bowed to the class intelligent battle armor. Within just one day, both nations had completely lost their sovereignty and became vassals of the Zhuxing Empire. Meanwhile, Tang Xiao on the base had a slight smile at the corner of his mouth. The voice of the deep space relic echoed in his mind. Conquer Nansha, gain 5,000 command points. Conquer Shima, gain 5,000 command points. Remaining command points 37,500 points. Invest 6,000 to manufacture 2 aerospace carriers.
Tang Xiao said in a deep voice.
Host manufactures 2 aerospace carriers consuming 18 hours. Command points consume 6,000, remaining 31,500 command points.
As the announcement of the surrender of Nansha and Shima was released, it immediately stirred up a global uproar.
From the declaration of war by the Zhuxing Empire to the complete capitulation of the two nations, it took only a single day, a speed that left people astonished once again. While the world was shocked, they once again felt the unfathomable military power of the Zhuxing Empire. What they deemed war appeared deceptively simple before them. With the announcement taking effect, the mining rights of all mineral veins and energy production areas within both countries inevitably fell into the hands of the Zhuxing Empire. Soon a continuous flow of resources began to head towards the Zhuxing Empire located in the northern region. At that moment in the base, he lightly touched the transfer button and his figure vanished from the base. The next second he appeared in his own villa in the city, shedding his battle armor and changing into casual attire. In the evening, Tang Xiao walked through the gates of Lanchuan University. He overheard students nearby discussing, "Have you heard? The whole world is talking about the Zhuxing Empire.
2 countries surrendered in a day, it's outrageous."
Tang Xiao shrugged, walking towards the teaching building while unable to refrain from complaining, "No matter how outrageous that is, it can't compare to our school. Forcing everyone to participate in a single event is truly a hassle." His tone was filled with helplessness over campus trivialities, and no one could associate this ordinary student complaining about the event with the lord of the Zhuxing Empire stirring up international affairs. Upon arriving at the assembly point, the playground was already crowded with people.
Tang Xiao scanned the area and spotted Zheng Yuanshu.
Ever since being taught a lesson last time, this guy had indeed become much more obedient. Upon seeing him look over, he instinctively averted his gaze. On the other side, Su Shiwai stood beside the steps next to a girl with flowing hair draped over her shoulders. Her profile was exquisitely defined, her eyes carrying a hint of aloofness. In terms of appearance, she was not at all inferior to the lively and bright Su Shiwai.
"Tang Xiao. Over here."
Su Shiwai spotted him at once and waved her hand with a smile. After a few interactions, Tang Xiao had already regarded this cheerful girl as a good friend and quickened his pace upon seeing her. Tang Xiao approached and Su Shiwai eagerly introduced the girl beside her. "This is my roommate Lin Wanqing, also from our department, in the same class as Lin Yu. She has been participating in competitions outside, so you might not have seen her before." Lin Wanqing nodded slightly at him, her voice soft and gentle. "Hello, Tang Xiao. I've heard Shiwai mention you." When the party lights dimmed, the camping group of 6 gathered with Lin Wanqing, whom they had just befriended, to discuss the performances. Zheng Qiao slapped his thigh. "Let's go for a late-night snack. That barbecue stall on the back street of the school has amazing grilled kidneys." Tang Xiao initially wanted to return to the villa, but seeing the anticipation in Su Zaiwei's eyes and realizing he had been too busy lately, he figured a moment of relaxation would be nice, so he nodded in agreement. The group chatted and laughed as they walked toward the school gate. As they neared the archway, Lin Wanqing suddenly stopped and pointed at a shadowy corner of the street. "Isn't that Chenli from our class?" Wang Hao and Lin Yu followed her gaze and indeed saw Chenli surrounded by a few thugs with dyed hair. Chenli, a quiet classmate from their department, was being shoved around, his books scattered on the ground. One of the thugs with yellow hair was grabbing his collar and cursing at him.
Tang Xiao stood a few steps away, arms crossed, watching the corner. He recognized Chenli.
Last time in the cafeteria, their eyes had met briefly, and Tang Xiao had been intimidated by Chenli's inexplicable pressure, breaking out in a cold sweat. He had felt then that Chenli was no ordinary person, and now he wanted to see who this man really was. At that moment, Chenli was shoved stumbling by the thugs, his books spilling everywhere, yet he still didn't fight back.
"What are you doing?" Wang Hao, being impulsive, rushed forward to intervene.
But before he could reach them, a thug kicked him in the stomach, sending him stumbling to the ground.
"Meddling, huh?"
The thug sneered and closed in, ready to strike.
Tang Xiao clicked his tongue, finding this pre-snack interlude tedious. He finally stepped forward, activating the first stage nano attachment module with a thought. As he felt the nano module vibrating subtly beneath his skin, he reached out and with a simple push and pull sent the 2 most aggressive thugs tumbling to the side with pained cries as if struck by an invisible force. The remaining thugs, enraged and fueled by alcohol, lunged at Tang Xiao. One of them, heavily drunk, pulled a dagger from behind his waist and thrust it toward Tang Xiao's back. "Watch out!"
A low shout rang out. It was Chenli, who had just been knocked to the ground. He had somehow scrambled up and moved with astonishing speed, grabbing the thug's wrist, holding the knife. His fingers clamped down like iron pliers and his eyes blazed with a terrifying sharpness, nothing like the bullied boy from moments ago.
"Ah!"
The thug screamed in agony, the dagger clattering to the ground. Chenli stared him down until the man was nearly passing out from pain, then released his grip. The thugs, frightened by Chenli's gaze, fled the scene. Tang Xiao was genuinely startled by Chenli's sudden transformation. The once timid man now exuded a chilling light in his eyes that commanded caution. Their eyes met in the air. Chenli wore a clean white windbreaker, his posture tall and straight. Tang Xiao, in a simple black casual outfit, stood with his head held high. They stood there in silence, the surrounding noise seemingly cut off.
Chen Li caught a flicker of vigilance and curiosity in Tang Xiao's eyes, far from what an ordinary student should possess.
Meanwhile, Tang Xiao observed Chen Li and sensed an indescribable pressure hidden within this seemingly casual young man. The deftness with which he had taken down the thug was nothing like that of a mere bookworm. Both detected an unusual aura in the other, like two wild beasts suddenly encountering each other in the brush. They understood each other tacitly yet refrained from exposing the truth.
Thank you all.
Chen Li was the first to look away, his voice a bit hoarse as he bent down to pick up his books. The fierce edge from before receded like a tide and he reverted to the quiet, slightly shy boy. Tang Xiao withdrew his gaze and turned to Wang Hao. You okay? Zhang Qiao and Li Meng had already helped Wang Hao up while Lin Wanqing assisted Chen Li in gathering his books. Lin Wanqing looked at Chen Li's solitary figure and gently invited him, want to grab a bite with us? Chen Li shook his head, stepping back with his books. No, I have something to do.
I'll be going now. Thanks.
With that he turned and walked away quickly, his white windbreaker disappearing around the street corner.
Tang Xiao watched him leave, his fingers moving unconsciously.
Two nearly invisible first-stage scout bees had already flown out, silently trailing Chen Li.
The group arrived at the barbecue stall on the back street.
As soon as they sat down, Wang Hao rubbed his stomach and exclaimed, Tang Xiao, you're amazing. The way you handled those thugs was so cool. You've been hiding your skills. Lin Yu bit into a skewer, frowning in confusion, speaking of which, when Chen Li grabbed that thug's wrist he looked pretty tough too. Why didn't he fight back from the start?
Exactly.
Wang Hao slapped the table, looking dejected. If I'd known he could handle it himself I wouldn't have rushed in and taken that kick.
It hurts like hell.
Tang Xiao held a skewer of grilled sausage, bringing it to his mouth absently, his mind still lingering on the earlier eye contact at the corner.
Hey Tang Xiao.
Li Meng nudged him with her elbow. I'm asking you, why were you and Chen Li staring at each other for so long? It was like a showdown between masters in a martial arts movie.
Tang Xiao didn't hear her until Su Shiwei gently patted his back. What are you thinking about? Li Meng's talking to you. He snapped back to reality, blinked and lowered the skewer from his mouth. Huh?
What? I said you and Chen Li stared at each other for so long. Do you think there's something off about him?
Li Meng repeated, her eyes full of curiosity. Tang Xiao smiled and changed the subject. What could be off? Maybe he was just scared. Come on, let's drink.
He picked up a bottle of soda and raised it to Wang Hao, but inwardly he thought those two scout bees should be sending back news by now. A little while later, Wang Hao was animatedly recounting how he would have dealt with the thugs if he hadn't been knocked down, while Su Shiwei, Lin Wanqing and the others teased him. Tang Xiao's hand holding the soda suddenly froze and his brow furrowed slightly. The connection with the scout bees in his mind was abruptly severed, vanishing without a trace. His heart sank. He had never encountered this before. Tang Xiao casually looked up toward the direction Chen Li had left, a cold glint flickering in his eyes.
Tang Xiao. What's wrong? Su Shiwei noticed his expression and asked with concern. Nothing.
Tang Xiao averted his gaze, took a sip of soda, the cold liquid calming the turmoil within. Maybe the wind was strong and blew some sand into my eyes. He said no more, but his fingers tapped lightly on his knee under the table.
Chen Li was even more extraordinary than he had anticipated.
And what was the method that could silently destroy the scout bees? Tang Xiao hurriedly finished his late-night snack, returned to the villa and immediately accessed the footage from the reconnaissance bee. On the holographic screen, the footage transmitted by the reconnaissance bee began to replay rapidly. Chen Li was seen walking alone down a dimly lit street holding a book. His pace had become considerably steadier compared to when he was at the street corner as he made his way into an old residential alley near the school, suggesting he lived in an off-campus rental. In the footage, Chen Li pushed open an unremarkable wooden door and his figure vanished inside. Just then a reconnaissance bee skillfully squeezed through the door crack. At that moment the screen suddenly flickered with static, plunging into complete darkness with a glaring signal loss notification popping up. This is where the signal was lost. Tang Xiao swiped his finger across the screen, attempting to zoom in on the last frame, but could only see a faint light seeping from within the house, accompanied by a palpable sense of isolation. It was as if the rental house was enveloped by some kind of energy field, cutting off all external connections once entered. He stared at the black screen for a moment, his gaze deepening. The ability to accurately sense the intrusion of the reconnaissance bee and instantly activate shielding or destruction mechanisms indicated that Chen Li's rental house surely harbored secrets. Tang Xiao did not send another reconnaissance bee, but instead called up the architectural blueprint of the residential area, focusing on the location of Chen Li's rental house, lost in thought. Inside Chen Li's rental house the lighting was dim and four unremarkable golden array flags stood in the corner, their surfaces subtly glowing, enveloping the entire room in a layer of invisible barrier. The reconnaissance bee had just collided with this barrier, causing it to instantly lose signal. Yet Chen Li was unaware of the two reconnaissance bees. He walked slowly to the center of the room, sat cross-legged and began to meditate. His fingertips formed a simple hand seal and a faint white glow gradually enveloped him. Yet in his mind the figure of Tang Xiao kept resurfacing. With his skills it's impossible for him to be an ordinary student. Chen Li furrowed his brow, filled with doubts. He had quietly observed Tang Xiao during their last camping trip. He had not expected that someone could emerge unscathed from the giant python's lair. Moreover, he had not detected any spiritual energy within him at the time. Could it be luck? Shenli murmured, shaking his head. The ease with which Tang Xiao had taken down the thug and the occasional cold glint in his eyes were certainly not explainable by mere luck. No spiritual energy yet possessing such strength. Could it be he used some special technique? Or... He thought of another possibility, his eyes flashing with surprise, those lost ancient martial arts. He couldn't make sense of it. Just like when they locked eyes earlier, he felt that Tang Xiao's gaze held a probing nature while he himself had felt an intense alertness towards Tang Xiao in that moment. It was the intuition of kindred spirits, or perhaps the perception of anomaly towards anomaly. Shenli slowly opened his eyes, glanced at the array flags in the corner and lightly tapped his knee with his fingertips, inwardly contemplating, it seems that this Tang Xiao is worth paying close attention to. And I must be more cautious at school in the future to avoid being exposed. Suddenly Shenli seemed to think of something and decided to revisit the cave from their last camping trip. Perhaps he could unearth the secrets that Tang Xiao had concealed there. Just as the thought arose, the ring on his finger began to emit a faint glow and a conical hat quietly appeared in his palm. He raised his hand to put it on, and the white windbreaker he wore unexpectedly turned pitch black as if stained by ink, perfectly suited for stealth in the night. Immediately thereafter a beam of light shot towards the direction of Qingfeng Mountain. Meanwhile on the other side Tang Xiao was deep in thought in the villa. The expression Shenli had when he mentioned the cave clearly indicated that he knew something. Could there be some connection between him and the giant python? He gazed towards Qingfeng Mountain and solemnly activated the White Emperor battle armor. Activating White Emperor battle armor for the host. In an instant layers of silver metal plates enveloped him. The next moment he had transformed into a streak of light racing towards Qingfeng Mountain. After a while Tang Xiao's figure stealthily slipped into the cave, the rubble at the entrance stirred by the airflow from the battle armor making faint sounds. He raised his hand and pressed lightly on the side of his helmet, releasing several reconnaissance bees the size of a thumb from the hidden compartment in the shoulder of the armor. Tang Xiao looked at the few reconnaissance bees before him and issued the command: reconnaissance range 300 meters, activate thermal scanning. The reconnaissance bees instantly scattered, diving into the cave. After a while Tang Xiao's expression sharpened as his gaze locked onto the direction where the giant python had disappeared. Then he exerted force with his feet, moving forward swiftly and silently. Deep within the cave, droplets of water hung from the damp rock walls. The echoes of Tang Xiao's footsteps reverberated through the cave, accompanied by the footage transmitted back from the reconnaissance bees. The stone crevice on the left led to another spacious stone chamber, while the dark river on the right faintly connected to distant sounds of water. The path beneath his feet was sometimes narrow, barely allowing one person to pass, and sometimes opened up into a spacious stone hall. Tang Xiao's expression grew serious as he pondered, could the bases of these mountains actually be one whole? Suddenly the reconnaissance bee transmitted an electronic voice: a carbon-based lifeform is rapidly approaching. Tang Xiao was taken aback, still processing the information. In the shadow across from him, a figure wearing a conical hat stood still, clad in a pure black outfit that merged with the cave. Only the black veil hanging from the edge of the hat swayed slightly, obscuring the face, yet emanating an indescribable sense of oppression. Who are you? Why are you suddenly here? Tang Xiao's voice came through the armor's amplifier, carrying a metallic resonance as he warily scrutinized the figure. The person beneath the hat did not answer immediately. After a moment a deep voice replied, who are you? A mech. Are you from the Star Forging Empire? I'm just curious about who is in this cave. What about you? Tang Xiao's electronic voice calmly resounded again. Shenli beneath the hat pondered, could it be that this cave truly has something? Is this person in a mech, perhaps, from the Star Forging Empire? He then casually added, I'm just a bit curious about this place, so I came to take a look. At this moment Tang Xiao was also secretly speculating, this person is so fast, they appeared right before my eyes just after the reconnaissance bee issued a warning. It's illogical. The two stood off against each other, the tension in the air suddenly tightening. Seeing that the white mech did not respond, Shenli turned to leave. Wait, please clarify why you are here, or don't blame me for what happens next. Tang Xiao, relying on the White Emperor mech, issued a warning to Shenli first. However, Shenli was equally unyielding. Oh. If that's the case, you can certainly give it a try. Tang Xiao could have activated the thermal weapons of the mech, but he thought that using energy cannons in this fragile cave might trigger a collapse. With the thought, he chose to engage closely and take him down. The joints of the White Emperor mech emitted faint hydraulic sounds as a fist filled with tremendous force aimed directly at Shenli, who was clad in black. Shenli saw the white mech raise its fist, and instead of dodging, he met it head-on with a punch. With a dull thud as their fists collided, Tang Xiao felt a tremendous force surge from the point of impact, and the mech's sensors even emitted a faint overload alarm. He was shocked. The alloy exterior of the White Emperor mech could withstand cannon fire, yet the opponent had taken it head-on with their bare body, and their arm remained so steady. Shenli was equally astonished. He had put all his strength into that punch. He quickly stepped forward, moving as swiftly as a ghost, his night suit leaving a trail of afterimages. The two quickly became entangled in combat. Although the mech was fast, it was still a bit slower compared to Chun-Li's agility. Tang Xiao felt increasingly alarmed as he fought. Although the opponent's punches and kicks seemed ordinary, they always landed precisely on the mech's pressure points. More frightening was the strength of that body, which could engage the White Emperor mech in a hard clash without faltering. Seeing that he couldn't gain the upper hand, Tang Xiao prepared to activate the weapon system despite the risk of collapse. At that moment, Chun-Li suddenly stepped back half a pace, raising his left hand with his index and middle fingers together, a faint azure glow emanating from his fingertips. He began to weave a peculiar hand seal, muttering incantations that were obscure and difficult to understand. This is... Tang Xiao's pupils constricted as he watched the shifting hand seal through the mech's optical lens. A ridiculous yet intense premonition surged in his heart. It was a technique that belonged only in legends or on television, belonging to a cultivator. Impossible. Is there really such an existence in this world? In his shock, he almost forgot to move. In the next second, the azure light at Chun-Li's fingertips surged violently and several solid wind blades appeared out of thin air, slicing through the air with sharp howls. Tang Xiao snapped back to reality, hastily adjusting the energy of his battle armor to form a shield in front of him. Clang! The wind blades struck the energy shield, creating ripples that reverberated throughout the cave, causing it to shake violently. White Emperor mech core energy consumption at 15. Tang Xiao's eyes narrowed slightly. This single blow had consumed 15 of the core energy. With a thought, an energy blade formed in the palm of his hand amidst the humming. At the same time, the White Emperor armor enveloping his body suddenly emitted mechanical clanking sounds, and numerous small energy ports appeared on the shoulders and chest, gathering white light. In the next second, countless energy beams shot toward Chun-Li like a torrential rain. Chun-Li's toes touched the ground and his figure darted between the gaps of the beams, narrowly avoiding several beams that grazed the edges of his clothing. But just as he stabilized his stance, his peripheral vision caught a fleeting shadow. Tang Xiao had used the cover of the beams to instantly appear in front of Chun-Li with the energy blade aimed directly at his face. In that life and death moment, Chun-Li had no time to turn and block. Acting purely on instinct, he slammed both hands down to the ground, roaring earth spike technique. With a hum, a sharp rock spike suddenly shot up from the ground right beneath Tang Xiao's feet. Tang Xiao's pupils constricted as the spike's tip grazed the lower abdomen of his armor, the immense impact lifting him up, and he slammed heavily against the cave wall, debris raining down. Crack! Tang Xiao raised his hand and swung his blade, instantly severing the rock, but before he could stabilize himself, a cold light was already rushing toward him. Unbeknownst to him, Chun-Li had already acquired a long sword glowing with a faint azure aura, slashing toward Tang Xiao. Damn it! Tang Xiao cursed inwardly as he shifted his thoughts. The energy core of the White Emperor armor suddenly lit up and an energy shield appeared once more in front of him. Clang! The moment the long sword collided with the shield, a piercing metallic sound echoed throughout the cave. Chun-Li, sensing the advantage, did not relent. With a twist of his wrist, the long sword transformed into countless afterimages, the blade striking the shield like a torrential storm, dimming the shield's glow with each impact. What alarmed him even more was that Chun-Li's speed of drawing the sword had reached an extreme. His naked eye could not capture the trajectory of the blade, only a blur of azure afterimages danced before him. Tang Xiao gritted his teeth, knowing that passive defense would eventually lead to his downfall. He immediately abandoned maintaining the shield and both palms summoned two orbs of orange-red energy, radiating a scorching heat as they spun. Tang Xiao spun his arms fiercely and two thick beams of energy shot out from his palms in a fan shape, sweeping toward the front. Chun-Li's pupils constricted at the sight, fearing to take on the beam's heat, and he could only retreat rapidly. In that brief moment of respite, both were drenched in sweat. Chun-Li's hand gripping the sword hilt trembled slightly. The continuous use of spells and rapid sword strikes had drained most of his spiritual energy, and what weighed heavily on his mind was that no one knew how many more lethal moves were hidden within that all-white armor. The longer the fight continued, the greater the probability of his defeat. At that moment, Tang Xiao was fixated on the blue energy bar pulsating at the core of the armor, realizing that after the recent barrage of missiles, beams, and shields, only 40 energy remained. He had already begun to consider retreating. If the energy runs out, I must activate spatial leap to escape. I cannot fall here. The atmosphere in the cave grew increasingly tense. Both felt that continuing the fight would be detrimental, and it was not worth it to fall here merely out of curiosity.